design hangar, a steel beacon, and other parts of the airport. So those are celebrated to some extent, but not widely publicized. So that's something to take a look at. Opportunities for non-aviation development in the airport are limited. This comes from the Federal Aviation Administration, which makes a lot of sense, right? The airport is supposed to be airport, and uses at the airport are supposed to serve aeronautical uses in general. So the FAA is rightly strict about non-aeronautical uses at an airport. We think that there's one particular property within the fence, as they say, that might have some opportunities for non-aeronautical use that would have to go through an FAA conversation and regulatory pathway to make that work. But we took a look at it as an exercise to think about increasing revenues for the airport overall. So I'll be talking about that in just a second. So the two project pathways, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the presentation. Again, we were trying to think about different alternatives for the future of the airport. So there are these operating alternatives I'm going to talk about here in a second. And those are looking at preserving the use of the airport and modifying revenues and looking for other types of investments to make sure that the airport can get into the black and be financially stable into the future. And then there's the redevelopment alternatives. And again, we're going to come back to why that's such a challenging pathway here for the airport. Under the operating alternatives, and these stack on each other as well, we have three operating alternatives. One of them is preserve, then we have enhance and modify. The preserve alternative is looking at some cost control options. So reducing some transfers. So there's transfers from the airport to central services for wetland fees, things like that, maybe reducing some of the transfers. That doesn't reduce your overall city budget costs, right? That's moving dollars around, but it changes the picture of the airport's financials. We took a look at combining management with other airports or perhaps having a private operator there at the airport. The opportunity to save money there isn't great. The airport's already run really efficiently from an operations standpoint. So maybe there's a little bit of a change there, but it's not significant. The airport, you're already benchmarking your fees right now. So that's something that's a great action to take. So that's something, so continuing to do that is part of this option. Another action that other airports take on, and we saw this in the Eugene airport, is charging a fee for itinerant aircraft. So aircraft that aren't based at your airport would pay a fee to land there. In Eugene has a much bigger airport, right? And so they are able to collect quite a bit of fee from that measure. So it could generate some additional revenue, but again, it's probably limited. So the preserve operating alternatives is really about incremental growth and around tweaking some things that you're already working on. So does it kind of increase the operational efficiency of the airport? Yes, but it does so in a limited way. The enhance operating alternative is taking a look at capital investment into the airport. So this is saying, well, what if the city were to invest in certain types of improvements so as to increase revenue at the airport? One of the ideas that was floated was, would a restaurant work there? Would that be a way to increase revenue? This is a high capital, high risk endeavor. Restaurants, no matter where they are, typically last 3 to 5 years. And so that we think is high risk, high capital. Another alternative here within Enhance is to take a look at what's called the displaced threshold. So this is the kind of marker along the runway where operations, landings, and takeoffs can occur. This is somewhat of a regulatory barrier that would require conversations with the FAA. What it would do, in our understanding, is enable the full range of light aircraft to land at the runway, but you're probably going to be gaining about 5% more operations through that. So that's something to look into, but again, it's not a huge game changer in terms of revenue. Also, if you're having more operations, you're also having more costs there. So again, it's somewhat limited. Hangar development is an option here with the enhance operating alternative that has the most promise. So this is taking a look at either doing what you already do and ground leasing some of space for private developers to build hangars and then to lease out, or the city building your own hangars and then leasing them out. And as you would imagine, one of them would be kind of low risk, low cost, low revenue, the ground lease option. If you were to build your own hangar, of course, you have to put that capital investment in, and then it would take you a number of years to recoup that despite the higher rate for leasing out the built space. So that's worth pursuing. Of course, it's really dependent on market absorption. As we talk to stakeholders, we hear that there is demand for additional hangar space up and down the West Coast, actually. But that's not something that we looked into in incredible depth. So, but it's worth taking a look at. In the modify scenario, what the modify scenario is doing is this is looking at that question of non-aeronautical use at the airport that I mentioned. So there's one part of the airport here. The orientation here is a little bit challenging. I know north is to our right there, so we have this oriented differently. But that orange area there is about 5 acres in the southeast corner of the airport. This is an area that is, there's no taxiway currently on that side of the runway. And so we took a look at, well, what if this parcel was turned into a non-aeronautical use? Would it be feasible? Would that potentially generate revenue for the city? The process of doing this is looking at the highest and best use of that site. It's zoned for industrial, manufacturing, or warehouse uses. And so we did actually a little bit of a financial feasibility test on a couple of those different uses, looking at a 50,000 square foot industrial building. We do what's called scenario testing with all of this feasibility work. Sometimes putting in assumptions of, well, what if the building were a really nice building, but they were charging higher rents, or what if it was just a metal tilt-up building and they could only charge so much? And so we kind of get a range of outputs from that. The range of outputs go from negative, it would be infeasible, it would not attract a developer, it wouldn't happen, to no, this is revenue positive. This could potentially generate up to $50,000 a year in a ground lease scenario where the city ground leased it to a developer and said, you build the building, we'll have a 30, 40 long-term ground lease on this, and you're just collecting that ground lease fee. So that has a potential there. Something to note, however, as we benchmarked ground leases for industrial properties at airports in the region, the ground lease rate for non-aeronautical uses was less than the rate that you're already using for hangars at the airport. So hangars, ground leasing for a hangar would actually generate more revenue than for the non-aeronautical industrial use. So that runs through the 3 operating alternatives that we took a look at. And now let's get back to why we had a project pivot in the middle of the project, and why we only looked at that hypothetical example of closing the airport down and turning it into something else, only to kind of a summary level. And that's because we had a number of conversations with the FAA, with the Oregon Department of Aviation, and did research on the precedent of NIPIAS airports closing down. We found 0 precedent of NIPIAS airports closing down in the past, over the past 20 years. And talking to the FAA, they said this is akin to, would you close down a highway? Would you close down I-5 between Albany and Eugene? It's completely out of the question, right? So NIPIAS airports, again, form all of the nodes in the aviation system across our nation. and the federal government works very hard to preserve that system. On top of the challenging regulatory barrier there would also be significant upfront cost in closing the airport. The FAA and the ODA have supported the Albany Municipal Airport, as they do all NIPIAS airports, through grants, what's called grant assurances. And the closing of airports would trigger an immediate payback of all of those grants. These numbers would change from year to year depending on when the grant was issued. But if their airport were to be closed today, it would be about $9.3 million back to the FAA and upwards to $500,000 to the ODA. Those numbers don't also take into account closeout of leases, ground leases that you have with private operators at the airport, and that would be in addition to these costs. So those conversations, again, with the regulators and jumping into the process, you will see in our final report also, we have a detailed review of the entire process to close down an airport. Really showed us that it's would be a very complex, very difficult pathway to try to close the airport. And so we really shifted in to focus on those operating alternatives instead. So just a few observations before I turn it back to Paul here with the staff report. It's clear from our work that the Albany Airport is an important public asset and one of historical significance. Again, it has some of those nationally recognized historic buildings and improvements, and it's an important part of the Oregon and the nationwide aviation network. Like I just talked about, closing the airport would be far more complex than a local land use decision or even a land use decision where you'd have to engage with the state. Again, it's a very rare occurrence that a NIPIAS airport closes. The deficit, the structural deficit that we talked about is real. It's about $100,000 a year right now. To put that in perspective, that's less than 1% of your annual adopted budget. Those dollars also don't come out of the general fund. Right now, they're coming out of a capital fund. I know we can talk more about that. And going through all of these different alternatives, again, there's no single strategy. Unfortunately, this is the situation with so many projects like this. There is no silver bullet that will fix this, but it's through a combination of actions and strategies to move the airport into a better financial position. And with that, Paul, I will turn it to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to appreciate Eco Northwest and their work on this and sort of laying out where we are. But I also want to say, how excited I'm to be here tonight and this to be my first topic, which is the Albany Municipal Airport. It's been just a couple of months and a short period of time, but it's been great. First I want to say that, I can't say enough. I want to compliment, you as stewards for having such an incredibly beautiful city as a whole. The city has so many wonderful jewels, and having spent some time at the airport, clearly, as was said, the 1929 historic hangar is another beautiful piece of history, which provides the airport and the city a unique opportunity for the future. Based on the study and our discussions with Airport Advisory Commission, FAA, and the Oregon Department of Aviation, our staff recommendation is to move forward with 4 practical near-term actions. These steps will keep the airport open, honor its historic value, and improve financial performance and position the airport for long-term success. I think a key thing here is first to develop a comprehensive marketing plan for the Albany Municipal Airport. It's the oldest continuously operating airfield since 1920 and the first in the state to be listed as the National Register of Historic Places. The airport has a compelling story that is clearly undertold. This plan will focus on opportunities to increase general aviation activity and attract new tenants, including emerging aviation technology businesses. Promote the 1929 hangar, Air Museum as a premier community event space, fly-ins, Young Eagles rallies, Experimental Aircraft Association, or the EAA partnerships, are just a few of what I see as many possibilities. As part of the process, we will conduct a detailed analysis informed by the study and the 2016 master plan, and targeted digital content and partnerships with the Albany Visitors Association and local economic development organization. The goal is simple: turn this incredible historic asset into a more visible economic driver for the region. Second, we need to expand community and stakeholder outreach. The Airport Advisory Commission and current users are passionate, for sure, which is great, though creating improved understanding of airport operations and connection requires broader engagement across Albany. And that's to build and understand and support for the long term, and that includes the value of the operations and the history of the city. And third, identify and pursue targeted enhancements for operational efficiencies and selective non-aviation revenue opportunities. Those always have to be consistent with FAA and ODA requirements. The key piece is maximizing aviation use and connectivity and its historic identity. The study confirms we can modestly reduce the current $100,000 annual operating gap through cost control, updated leases and fees, and limited compatible developments, such as obviously the 5-acre site, without compromising aviation use. Fourth, develop an airport-wide design standards that preserve and prominently feature the airport's key historic construction, especially, obviously, the distinctive lattice truss, redwood material, color palette of the 1929 hangar, and the steel beacon tower. These standards will reinforce the National Register Historic District identity, create visual consistency across the airport, and guide future tenant improvements, signage, and development. Taken together, these 4 steps focus on preserving and enhancing the airport and the aviation activities, making it a viable public asset, creating events to celebrate its history and connection to the community. So with that, we're happy to take any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions?
I do. I have 2 questions.
Councilor Newton?
Yes. So I know you mentioned Eugene earlier, which is much, much larger than this airport, right? Do you have any examples of similarly sized airports that have successfully improved financial performance? And curious if you know of any strategies that they used.
Yeah, great question, Counselor. We did take a look at a number of different airports in Oregon, and I think Tiberius Solutions, who's a sub-consultant, actually made a number of phone calls to Corvallis and a few others there. I think some of the measures that we've talked about here in those operating strategies around either kind of operational efficiency through combining management with other airports, benchmarking your hangar fees and other fees to market, making sure that those are up to date, were a bunch of the findings from some of that research. I didn't introduce Nicole, our project manager on this project. I don't know if you have more detail to provide here too.
I don't have any more detail other than to say, like, a lot of what we heard from them is, oh yeah, more hangars. Which is, really, I think the more obvious answer. But when we were looking at this, a lot of what we heard is they're also kind of many of them are in a similar boat. Like it's not a massive revenue generator.
Okay, and then my other question is, so I love the airport because of its significant historical value. I also agree it is a jewel in our community. Do you know, or are you aware of any grant or tourism opportunities tied to preserving that history?
Ooh, so that's a great question.
That is a good question. I can't answer that question. I'd have to do some more research. I don't know that specifically in that area. Most of the FAA grants are really about the infrastructure itself. We'd have to take a look at that.
I'd love to hear any research that you happen to come across. That'd be great.
Definitely.
Any other counselor have anything? I had a question. Several years ago when I took tours of the hangars, several of those hangars had furniture, cars that weren't taxed since 1995. Is there a plan, or will you be developing a plan to mitigate the misuse of the hangars?
Yes. So part of what I was trying to lay out, there's a series of steps that I think we have to work through. But one of the things is really looking at aviation use. That is to really focus to make sure hangar usage is especially focused on aviation use. So that's broadly across those areas. And then also really looking at the lease rates and how they're structured. There's lots of opportunity here. There is a demand for hangars. I've seen it not only in other states, it's across the country. There's a lot of opportunities also to bring in third-party entities that are willing to fund the construction of hangars as a whole. But that means that we have to really come up with a good design standard. And the design standards, also looking at leases, help us have a better conversation with the current leaseholders and really trying to work through that in a given period of time. We have to take some time with it, but we will work through that.
I personally like, during the pandemic, a lot of airports canceled events, and we had the 99s fly into Albany, and we had Amelia Earhart's birthday at the airport, and it drew a lot of attention. A lady flew in with her granddaughter, great-granddaughter from Alabama. She was in her 90s. So it was nice to see that airport being used like that.
Yeah, lots of opportunities for that in the future.
Councilors, anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on tonight's agenda is item B, 4B, draft strategic plan presentation. Kayla Barber and SSW Northwest, Sarah Singer Northwest, is that right? You online? There she is right there.
SSW is our consultant, Sarah Singer Wilson.
Yes. Hey, Sarah.
We actually have Ashley joining us tonight. Just give
Oh,
me a
Ashley,
minute to
okay.
get us.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi. Hello. There we go. Okay, and so Ashley's actually going to kick us off. We're going to be tag teaming tonight. So I'm going to let her start, and then we will transition partway through. So go ahead, Ashley.
Great. Thank you, Kayla. Can everyone hear me all right?
I believe so.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you this evening. My name's Ashley Sonoff. I'm an associate with SSW Consulting, and I look forward to sharing an update with you on the strategic planning process. All right, we can go to the next slide. So first, just a little overview of our presentation tonight. First, we're going to reorient ourselves to the strategic planning journey that we've been on together since we began the work in late August. Then we're going to share some highlights from the community engagement process, how we engaged, who we heard from, what we heard, so that you can see how the results of the engagement connect to what you will see in the resulting strategic plan. And then we'll present the draft strategic plan to you, outlining the framework of the plan, sharing the mission, vision, and value statements, the vision areas, and the supporting goals which advance each vision area, including measures of success to track progress along the way. And as we move through this presentation, we will be stopping at the end of the different sections to check in with you to see if there's any questions or gather your feedback. So much of this work is intertwined, and so it's possible we might answer your question along the way, but we want to intentionally check in with you after each section so you don't have to wait till the end of the presentation to share any comments that you have or get a question answered. And then finally, at the end of the presentation, we'll discuss next steps. So including how we're checking in with community members to gather their input on this draft version of the plan, as well as how we are planning to incorporate that feedback and the council's feedback into the final version of the strategic plan, which will be coming to you for your consideration for adoption on May 27th. Next slide. So we began this work with 4 goals in mind. First, to create a strategic plan that defines broad vision areas. So vision areas capturing 10 to 20 years, medium-term goals that are 3 to 5 years in length, and then tactical objectives that are 1 to 2 years in length that are aligned to each goal. We also wanted to make sure that we identified vision areas and core values through meaningful engagement with the council, staff, and the community to ensure that they guide service delivery and decision-making. And part of this process that's particularly important is defining measures of success that are meaningful and trackable to demonstrate results and progress along the way, and also maintaining accountability and transparency to the council and the community. So this is what we set out to do, this is what we're doing, and this is how well we're accomplishing that. And then finally, around fostering a culture of strategic management and embedding that in just further into the culture. Albany already has a strong culture of strategic management, but further strengthening that culture. And that's done so through aligning the plan with the community, council and staff input, as well as other formal processes like the budget and department work plans. Next slide. This is our project timeline. So just reorient you to the process that we've been on together. We started this work back in August of last year when we developed our approach and the timeline for this work and some planning that took place. And then in October, you gathered with Sarah Wilson for the strategic planning workshop. And that's when we did a couple different exercises with council and staff. We looked back at the history of Albany and how key events, policies, and decisions over the years have influenced where Albany is today. We also developed a shared understanding of the current context in Albany. You looked at things like economic climate, the way the community has grown and changed over the years, political factors, changes in technology, and different needs in the community. And then finally, you completed a visioning exercise together that identified the council's priorities for the future in Albany. And all of this work we did together in the workshop helped inform the engagement that took place between December and February. And then we did that engagement with council and staff, with the community and with staff. And I'll share more on the engagement in a moment. And then finally, between February and May, we moved into the development of the strategic plan, where we took the results of the outreach and drafted the updated mission statement, vision statement, updated the organizational values to reflect all of the input that we received. We met with staff from across the organization to refine these statements and make sure they really capture the essence of Albany as a community and as an organization. And we organized the community priorities that we gathered from the outreach into themes, which then became our 5 focus areas or our vision areas. We worked with staff in an action planning workshop in March to take the community engagement results and discuss what does success look like in each of these vision areas and identify specific projects and initiatives that would advance each of those outcomes. From there was more engagement with each department to refine the supporting goals and objectives, bring clarity and practicality to the plan, as well as develop measurable performance indicators to track the progress over time and to keep the council and the community informed. And then finally, we've drafted the strategic plan report, which tells the story of this journey and presents the final version of the plan, demonstrating how the resulting plan connects to the community input that we received. And so here we are sharing the draft plan with you tonight so that we can make any adjustments needed to make sure that we get the plan right before it comes to you for adoption later this month. All right, so moving on to the next slide, I said I would share a little bit more about the community engagement. And in the next few slides, this is a refresher of a previous presentation that we gave with the community engagement results. But I want to so I might go through it a little more quickly, but I do want to include this in the presentation because I think it's critical to see how the input from the community is directly reflected in the plan. And so this slide shows how the various ways that we engaged. We conducted a variety of engagement in person through events and focus groups with high school students. We had engagement boards at the library and the pool. We had a variety of staff engagement from lunch and learns to workshop and focus groups. We hosted a community and staff survey online that promoted ways for community members to share their input with us. And we did that through emails and social media campaigns and the city website. And then we also distributed a variety of printed materials, including fact sheets, flyers, table tents, business cards around city facilities and local businesses, to inform people about the strategic planning process and give them an opportunity to share their input. All right, next slide. And here you can see who we heard from. Over 1,500 community members completed the online survey. We met with roughly 150 high school students through 3 different focus groups. We met with nearly 60 seniors at the holiday lunch event at the RCC. So overall, we heard from over 1,700 members in your community. All right, and the next slide really captures the essence of what we heard in the engagement. Of course, there's more that we could go into detail with, but you'll see how these things connect in the plan. But the high points are, these are the top priorities. The first was improving the condition of the streets and roads and traffic improvements around the city. The second was around housing affordability and for this focus on a desire for more options and levels of housing, such as workforce housing, opportunities for families to purchase their first home, and opportunities for seniors to downsize. At the same time, we also received community input asking to slow down high-density housing and focus on single-family homes. So there's definitely both perspectives, but there's a broader desire for more housing and more housing that's accessible. Third was centered around a thriving downtown. So supporting local businesses and the unique character of Albany. This is tied to economic vitality in Albany, but also this connection for thriving, but also it reflects this desire for connection and that residents have to gather with each other, and having these areas for like thriving economic opportunities or thriving downtown that creates these authentic connection points for residents and neighbors to see each other and interact with each other. There also creates spaces to gather for community events, and so that was really an important subcategory of a thriving downtown, is this strong piece to having that small town connection and that unique character. And then fourth, community safety. And this showed up as a couple of things. One is traffic safety. So things like speeding, people running red lights, things of that nature. But it also reflected a feeling of safety in public spaces such as parks and trails, and also connected to broader concerns around homelessness and the presence of those that are affected by homelessness in these spaces, and the feelings residents have of decreased accessibility and safety in using these spaces. And so overall, key takeaways that we heard from the engagement is just a really strong desire from community members for the city to focus on improving existing assets and infrastructure before expanding and growing further. So there's focus on streets and roads and other utilities and those assets. Also, a desire to maintain the unique character and community connection as Albany continues to grow. And then finally, to increase opportunities for living wage jobs in a variety of housing types. And before we move on to draft strategic plan, just want to pause and ask if there's any questions. I know a lot of that is a review from what you've heard before, Council, but if there's any questions, I can take those now.
Counselor Newton,
Oh, I have a lot of questions.
save some for us.
Okay, so one thing that stood out to me while reviewing both the strategic plan and also the raw community feedback data that we got 2 days ago is that the public input felt a lot more anxious and urgent. I'm not sure if anyone else felt that when they were reading that, than the tone that's really reflected in this presentation. Residents were consistently raising concerns about traffic, about infrastructure, about maintenance, and whether growth is already outpacing the city's capacity to keep up. I do think that this strategic plan presents a strong long-term vision, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that underlying tension that I think that residents are expressing around growth, livability, and preserving of Albany's character. So, few broader questions that I have. So looking at this strategic plan, I'm curious from staff's perspective, which parts will require the strongest council policy direction versus administration implementation? Um, are there any areas where staff feels like the plan might still be intentionally vague because additional council direction might be needed? And then I have just 4 other questions that I'll just give them all to you now quickly. So the feedback around traffic and congestion felt more urgent than the tone that was reflected in the strategic plan. I am just curious about how staff decided on how strongly to frame that concern. I'm also curious what objective measures is the city going to use to determine whether growth is outpacing infrastructure capacity, and what systems or corridors we're going to be using, and what maybe we're more concerned about for over the next 5 or 10 years. And the plan also emphasizes growth and opportunity. I'm also curious about where we will define limits or thresholds or address any capacity concerns. I just want to make sure that I'm able to answer to my constituents when so they know how we're successfully balancing growth with livability. Sorry if I'm stuttering over my words. I'm kind of just trying to get everything out. And then finally, what would failure look like? I'm curious, like if we're not managing growth responsibly, would we be able to recognize that early enough to be able to respond and kind of correct course? But so there you go. There's all my questions. Have at it. Maybe you can give back. I don't know.
So
but-
I'm actually gonna, if Ashley, if you have comments to the feedback portion around being more anxious versus feeling more hopeful, I would defer to you on that piece. But I will say, I think the rest of your questions are going to fit in much more nicely in the next
Okay,
section where we go
perfect.
through the specifics of the plan. In
Excellent.
fact, some of these are ones that we're going to hit. I'm going to try to make sure I catch the rest of them, but if I don't,
I will. I have them all written down after when I reviewed everything. Made a few cool pivot charts if anyone wants to see
Any other
them.
counselors? Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? I just had one thing for me, housing affordability and the varying types of housing is really important to me. It has always been. And it seemed like, for me, it was suppressed in this draft strategic plan. And I was wondering, was there a reason for that?
let's go to the next section.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it.
Thank you.
Ashley, did you have any comment you wanted to add to that before I move us into this next section? Or do you
Yes,
move us? Okay.
I'll just quickly address that feeling, like the sense of urgency and tension in the data. I noticed that as well. And in a presentation like this, where we're trying to share the highlights so that we can focus on, the actual plan, unable to go into a little bit more detail, but I think that is important to share that. And we did try to convey that in previous like outreach summaries that we provided, or then the meetings that we had with staff, particularly in the action planning workshop. And at times we even pulled out some like quotations directly from people's comments, because that really helps to capture like the context of and the sentiment behind the comments, because it can be challenging to take feedback from over 1,500 people and try to gather and reflect the different sentiments there. And so so just know that, like, as we had conversations and discussions with staff, as we were specifically as we were talking about what does growth look like and what does success look like when we think about growth, when we think about infrastructure needs and taking care of what we have. Those were we definitely had in-depth, robust discussions around that. And I felt like that sentiment carried through in those discussions. And hopefully we can see how that carried through in the resulting strategic plan. And Kayla can provide a little more context once we get to those sections as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, so now let's take a look at how the engagement with community council and staff is reflected in this draft strategic plan. So first of all, I would like to review the framework for how the plan is organized. So it starts with your mission, what's your purpose, why the organization exists, your vision. Here, the vision is where the city of Albany wants to be in the next 10 to 20 years. And then values, those are focused really, really for how staff show up to work. So how they view their work and what guides them in that work. The vision areas, those are those priority focus areas that I spoke to earlier. They have a 10 to 20 years lookout, and they align with the mission and advance the vision. The goals are medium term, so they're 3 to 5 year goals, and they align. And so there'll be goals that are under each of those vision areas. And then under each goal, there's these tactical objectives, and those are designed to be 1 to 2 years in length. And they describe how we're going to achieve each of those goal areas. And each of those are assigned a staff lead and a timeline, and then specific measures of success are tied throughout the plan to be able to show the progress in advancing these goals and these vision areas. So that's the framework of the plan. And just a quick note about the process here with the mission statement. We took the themes from the engagement to write the first drafts of the revised mission, vision, and values. But then we met with staff on multiple occasions, staff from throughout the organization, to ask for their feedback. And we refined the statements and the values several times because we wanted to make sure that they felt truly relevant and unique to the context of Albany, and not just general statements that you could insert, your city name here. And so there was a lot of discussion that went into these proposed statements. And so first with the mission statement. So Albany's mission: we deliver quality public services, partner across the organization and community, and intentionally plan for the future to ensure Albany remains a safe, vibrant place to live. This mission statement here reflects the focus on delivering the foundational public services and the importance of partnership, both in collaboration across the organization, so across different departments working together, and with the community, to ensure that the city's direction is rooted in and informed by the community's experience, and that intentional, thoughtful planning keeps what residents love most about Albany as the community grows over time. And next, with the vision statement, we developed both a statement and a tagline that tries to capture the essence of the vision statement and can be used on future materials that help, so that you can show this shortened version of this tagline to help keep focus on this shared vision together. So the tagline is "Your Hub City, safe, connected, and beautiful." And the longer vision is Albany is Oregon's hub city, a safe, welcoming community where neighborhoods thrive, people connect, and thoughtful infrastructure and growth create opportunity for generations. So this vision, the idea here with the vision is that it embraces Albany's nickname as a hub city in its advantageous geographic location, and in preserving opportunities for authentic neighborly connections that maintain the small town feel and unique character that residents love. There's also a focus on safety so that residents can enjoy all of the beautiful public spaces and neighborhoods that Albany is known for. There's also an emphasis on thoughtful infrastructure and planning to take care of the existing assets that the city has. So streets, facilities, utilities, recreation, just to name a few, and careful strategic growth to strengthen the community and expand opportunities for everyone who calls Albany home. So before I pass the presentation over to Kayla to share about the values, is there any questions specific to the mission statement or the vision statement, or any feedback that you'd like to share?
Council?
Should I, I really want to, are we going to go through the goals and details? Are we going to get into that weeds?
So the next section is going to be
Okay,
us
I don't
talking.
want to jump ahead. That's fine. I will say, the hub city, I understand it. I understand the historic significance of it. Part of the hub city was using the river as a heavy industry waterway, which we polluted tremendously. I just don't think, I understand the hub city. I'm not going to fight about it, but I don't know. I'm not thrilled about continuing that moniker. I just don't think we're at the intersection of various roadways. But I mean, I appreciate what you did on that. I'm not gonna make a big deal about that.
Any other questions or comments about the mission statement, vision statement before?
Councilor McGee, do you have anything?
I don't. I just would like to say I really appreciate the vision statement and the mission statement. I think it really encapsulate what Albany is about. So I appreciate that.
One thing that, and maybe I have a family, but, and I want it to be the vision theme, a city where families feel safe. I just want to be inclusive of like where everyone feels safe, right? Like whether you're
Not a
single,
family, just
yeah, you're
yourself,
not,
yeah.
whether you're like, aging in place, living alone, or, you're a young kid starting out with their first apartment, you should feel safe in Albany.
I thank you for those comments. I certainly agree. The city where families feel safe, that showed up like as a theme in the vision area, but we had that discussion too. So a lot of the comments that we received were related around, I want to make sure my kids feel safe to, to visit the parks and the, outdoor spaces that we have, or a feeling of safety so that my child can ride his or her bike down the street in the neighborhood. I don't have to worry about them. And so that's why it came up in the vision themes that way. The vision themes help to inform the vision statement. So moving forward, these themes, they kind of fall away because they get folded into the official tagline and the statement. So the themes off to the side help to show how the input from community members influenced the resulting statement.
Not seeing any other questions.
Okay.
Proceed, please.
So I'm going to move over to our values slide here. So here you can see the 5 values that are being recommended under the strategic plan. And as Ashley mentioned earlier, the values are a little bit different, right? They reflect the community, but really they're largely used day to day to determine how staff operates, interacts with each other, interacts with the public, and how we design the programs and processes that we ultimately, introduce to the public and bring and recommend to council. So there was an extensive outreach process done around the values with staff, specifically doing focus groups with both our frontline staff, our middle managers who typically do not get included in those processes, as well as our executive leadership team. And we also did a general citywide survey for staff. And the reason we did that is we really wanted to focus in on how can these be useful for you. We heard a lot of feedback coming out of the last plan that one, we had far too many values, and they were difficult for people to remember, to understand, and recognize how they interacted with each other. But we also went through an exercise where we actually walked through how do these values show up in practice? What does it look like when you are behaving in an innovative way, when you're acting as a good steward? And what does it look like when you're not? And that was very helpful and insightful from staff. It actually resulted in some adjustments from the last time that you saw these values. So you will see where stewardship and innovation had been kind of combined in one statement in the prior. We heard from staff that was a very important distinction there because in prior iterations, stewardship, while wonderful and something that they definitely valued, sometimes construed into a space where they felt like they couldn't innovate or they had to keep things status quo and that they could not take risks to move forward and advance areas. Another area that we heard strongly from them was collaboration. That was probably the most commented value coming out of staff, really recognizing the fact that there are a lot of areas where as we grow as a city, if we make sure that we are communicating, working together, we can better address those resources and provide more efficient processes and more quality services for residents. So there was a pretty extensive process there. And then I believe next slide is you, Ashley.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, and so thank you for sharing about those values. So now this slide shows the 5 vision areas. And so again, taking directly from the input that we received from the community, these main theme priority areas that emerged from the outreach really focused into these 5 key areas. So reliable and sustainable infrastructure, healthy economy, safe and resilient community, excuse me, connected and engaged community, and a high-performing government.
Okay.
And
So
then
I'm
Kayla, I think you're,
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'll pass to you.
So before I start going through reliable and sustainable infrastructure, I'm going to give a lay of the land for the next couple slides because I'm going to follow a pretty similar format, and I'm going to pre-warn you that a lot of these are intertwined with each other. So we are going to go through these, and then we will stop at the end of the 5 vision areas to make sure that we can check in and get feedback from you. I will say we are going to largely focus on the vision area, the specific goals, and we will talk through some measures of success and some highlights from the objectives, but we do have everything right here. So if we don't cover one that you were curious about, didn't understand, had questions, we can certainly address those as well. Okay.
Before you get started,
Yeah.
does council need a bio break? Anybody need a bio break? Thank you.
Okay. So sorry, lost my train of thought there. So first of all, we're going to start with one that is a little bit of a heavy hitter here, and that is our reliable and sustainable infrastructure. And the reason I call it our heavy hitter is because this really draws upon 2 of the major themes that we heard from that public feedback. So you talked a little bit earlier, Councilmember Newton, about that anxiety and fear that you heard around, particularly the growth and infrastructure piece. And that is a piece that we heard as well. One of the key things, though, in a strategic plan is we have to take that moment of going through and understanding that frustration and then move from that frustration and anxiety into how do we start implementing solutions, moving forward, and getting to a space where people can feel more comfortable about or enjoy and love that space that they're living in. So this area is really looking to address that frustration among residents that we are not able to take care of existing infrastructure today, and also being proactive enough, and are also not, in their perception, being proactive enough in addressing infrastructure needs as we grow. Additionally, we tried to weave through this loss of Albany's small town feel. We heard that repeatedly through the feedback. And as we understand, Albany is a growing city, right? We've had that conversation multiple times. That, you know, at 60,000 residents, that's a firmly medium-sized city by national standards, large city by Oregon standards. So how do you start to balance this fact that Albany is growing with preserving that small town feel? So you're going to see here the overall vision area, reliable and sustainable infrastructure. Albany is committed to strategic infrastructure planning. So again, starting to look ahead, that more proactive approach, ensuring assets are well maintained, dependable, and able to support the city's future needs. And then you can see under there that we have outlined goals that really align with that cohesive vision. I'll talk in a moment about why that's important. Ensuring safe, reliable, and well-maintained infrastructure. And then finally, establishing a strategic sustainable infrastructure funding plan, because as we all know, one of the biggest barriers to that infrastructure maintenance right now is that ability to fund not only what we have today, but what we will need in the future. So moving to this next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about measures of success, and we'll also talk about objectives on this slide. So I want to go over a little bit measures of success because this is a new concept that we have not had in prior plans. So there was the question earlier in regards to how do we know if we're moving forward or being successful? And the answer is we haven't really known in the past because we haven't always had that data being looked at, being trended, and had that data available. So a key piece of this strategic planning process was really to sit down, look at those vision areas, look at those goals, and look at what is the data that we have available to us or that we can reasonably get in order to start looking at that success. So you're going to see here a mixture of qualitative and quantitative data. Anywhere where you see that % of survey respondents, that is data that is coming from that community survey. So if you'll remember back in, I believe it was the fall, you heard the results from that national survey that Polko does for us. We have historically done that survey and it's gone and sat on a shelf. It is now being intertwined into the strategic plan to help us understand, are the objectives that we are implementing and the goals that we're moving forward actually having the outcomes and impacts for residents that we are hoping to see? So you can see those there. And then you can also, like I said, see some of those quantitative ones. So you'll see things like average time, travel time on key corridors, really getting towards that anxiety piece around traffic. And then also you're going to see in there some engagement spaces around comprehensive plan, because that is going to be a major objective and actually the first one I'm going to highlight for you. So talking through this idea of how do we how do we start to strategically plan for infrastructure growth here in the city of Albany, as well as balance that idea of small town character? And that was a pretty extensive conversation, probably the longest conversation that staff had during that facilitation. And really what we kept coming back to is the comprehensive plan for the city of Albany. So for those of you who are not familiar with the comprehensive plan, that is the largest land use document that the city creates. We created it in 1980, and we have not done a major update of it since 1980. For reference, the city of Albany had a population of 24,000 in 1980. That is a far cry from where we sit today. And it is typical that most cities will update in full that plan every 10 to 15 years. The reason for that being the infrastructure needs change, the population distribution changes, and really what the population and the community wants changes over that time. And as we started to go through, this gets to, are there items that are being left intentionally vague here? And the answer is yes. When we started getting into the specifics of what are some of the actionable items that we can implement or recommend to council for addressing these two key concerns we've heard, we realized we didn't have a good understanding of what the community wanted from a land use perspective. We started to hear it here in the strategic plan, but the strategic plan is at a 50,000 foot level when it comes to land use. This is a space where a robust comprehensive plan will allow us to have those very real conversations around what does balanced housing look like for you? What does it look like for you to have a connected neighborhood? What does it look like in terms of housing that you want to see? What does it look like in terms of how you want to see the land down the street from you used moving forward? And how does that all tie into what does it mean to live in Albany, and what is the identity for the city of Albany? So that is the first major objective I want to highlight from here. In addition, I want to highlight our transportation systems plan. So historically, that is largely focused on roads. This time around, we are going to look at incorporating mobility and transit as part of that plan. Because one thing that we heard was people wanted to feel more connected within their neighborhoods. They wanted options that didn't require them to sit in traffic, to move between their neighbors, get to those events, get to those parks. And then finally, the redesign of the CIP process. So as we were going through this and really talking through why have we not been able to utilize some of these resources and move forward some of these major projects, it really came back to there have been a lot of silos in regards to preparation of our capital improvement plan. So we're really going to be looking at that process as part of this strategic planning period in order to look for opportunities for leveraging off of each other. Can we move an item forward that has to do with the building of a park in order to take advantage of a roadway that's being worked on in that area? So that's a very key piece there to help the resources and funding go further. Looking ahead to healthy economy, this is the one vision area that carried forward from the last strategic plan, but I am going to note very quickly that this does not look the same as it did in that prior strategic plan. As you'll notice here, there is a strong connection being made around the vibrancy of downtown, as well as the role that affordable housing plays in the ability for Albany to have a healthy economy. It's not only about the jobs, it's about being able to have the workers here. It's about being able, we heard quite a bit about people wanting to make sure that their children, that their family could purchase in Albany and live in the place that they work. So here you'll see there's goals around strengthen Albany's economic base by attracting and retaining a diverse mix of industries. That's a pull forward from the prior strategic plan. But then you also see this emphasis on small business growth, expanding those housing opportunities, that downtown vibrancy I just mentioned, and then our role as a regional economic hub. So how does that play into measures of success and into some of those highlight objectives? So here, again, you're going to see that mix of qualitative and quantitative objectives, or excuse me, measures of success, really pulling from some of the data that we are tracking through our economic development team to help us understand the movement of businesses within the community, but also pulling from those survey results, there are areas around affordable housing. And the reason you see us pulling from there is because to this point, we have not had good data around affordable housing. And that is actually going to lead me to my first objective I'm going to highlight, which is that you will see in there the objectives around completing that housing inventory. And then there's also in the prior vision area, the strategies that go alongside that. part of doing that inventory and putting together those strategies is allowing us to understand what it is that we do need to be measuring and how we can measure those, how we can incorporate that into the process. That is also a highlight one because, again, this is an area where we were intentionally vague because the expectation is that that objective and completion of those objectives will result in additional objectives being recommended to council at the first update of this plan. So just want to highlight that. Next, I did want to bring attention to the objective around small business support for small business development organizations. That is very specifically addressed at the Small Business Development Center at Lynn Benton Community College. If you'll remember, we did hear that they would no longer, due to funding issues, be hosting that on site at that facility. That has been something that has been heavily used by our small business community here in Albany, and it's actually the ability for people to actually go in person has been a significant strength for us in being able to maintain having such a vibrant downtown and a lot of these unique businesses here in the community. That being said, that objective was placed in there to allocate staff time to be able to start looking at what are some other opportunities. As of right now, those services will continue in a virtual format at the state level, but based on what we heard from our residents, we value those small businesses, and so we want to make sure that we can look at other opportunities for people to access that in a similar way. Safe and resilient community. This is our public safety one, but what I would like to draw attention to here is it's not public safety in the traditional sense, right? If you look at it, it does carry forward those police and fire aspects that we've historically seen in the strategic plan, but it also starts to interweave cybersecurity, which has become an increasingly significant risk for the city. So much of our infrastructure is tied to networks, everything from the way our water treatment plant runs to just the day-to-day operations, being able to process a permit. Additionally, we've started to look at, based on that feedback, we really heard a lot of the safety concerns being around some particular areas within the community. So specifically within neighborhoods and in parks and trails. So you're going to see in the objectives that we start to focus in on things like how do we design and how do we bring in lighting in order to make an environment that feels more inviting and is safer for residents to traverse. So not just simply that traditional public safety. Looking at the measures of success, there are quite a few here, and I'm going to point out that this is largely because historically, this is the area that has been primarily the focus of our prior strategic plans. So because the strategic plan drives budget decisions and recommendations, there has been a lot of resourcing placed into safe and resilient community, and as such, there's been more opportunity for measures and data to be taken in this area. That being said, our hope is that we will be able to address that in a lot of our other vision areas as well. But while I'm here, and I apologize I didn't keep up with my flipping of pages here, a couple highlight objectives I wanted to show. Completion of the fire standards of coverage and feasibility study. That has recently kicked off. If you'll remember, this was a discussion point following the new contract for our fire union this year, really looking at what are the standards of service we need not just today, but long-term, so looking at that growth space. What is that going to cost the city to maintain, and what are the options for getting there, whether that be through revenues, changes in service levels, or the possibility of a district. And then you will also see under here the number of security cameras in parks and trails, as well as addressing lighting gaps. This is an area where we've gotten very creative. We have been able to look at data, again, data being very, very important, to look at leveraging opioid funds in order to help get additional security measures into some particular parks and trails where we've had a lot of problematic activity. So that is something new that we have not been able to do before. And then finally, implement a Vision Zero plan. I want to highlight that one because while this is something that is pretty common across the nation, we have not had it here in Albany. And this is really a plan that is focused on how do we eliminate traffic fatalities within the city. And the reason this is so important is completing a plan like this comes with a lot of opportunity for state and federal funding that we have not been able to tap thus far. And by being able to do that, our hope is that not only can we address this safe and resilient community piece, we can also address some of that sustainable infrastructure as well. Connected and engaged community, I am going to say I'm personally very excited for this one because this is an area that has not been highlighted in our prior strategic plans. This is very much the quality of life aspect of this strategic plan and really reflects a shift that we saw in the community feedback this time around, and really also incorporates this desire we heard for more regular feedback, incorporation, and engagement. Alongside the sustainable infrastructure I mentioned earlier, this vision area does also play to that small town feel, where the infrastructure side was very much the physical aspects of how you keep a city feeling small even as it grows. This particular vision area addresses the human aspect of that. How do you connect? How do you engage with your neighbors? How do you interact with people? What makes it feel special to be a member of the community of Albany? So moving over here to the measures of success, you can see, and this reflects the fact that this is an area that we have historically not resourced. There are fewer measures of success here, and that's simply because we don't have the data available yet. And that is a space where we will be working on what are the types of things that we can measure, what are the types of things that we can look at. That being said, I do want to draw your attention to a couple of ones where we got very creative. So for example, you'll see there number of active community user cards issued at the library. That is actually a measure to help us understand the touch points we are having with the homeless community. Those cards are actually issued largely to our transient population, and that you may have seen in the objectives that there is a space in there around increasing partnerships and touch points in the library with that population. So that is a creative use where we have not historically had good measures, good data, and we went, how can we still see, is this moving forward, so that you're not left with zero information while we are trying to put some of those other areas in place. Some other objectives I want to pull attention to. Very exciting one. I know our Parks Director is thrilled about this one. You might have noticed that we called the update to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan a update to the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Master Plan. We heard considerable feedback around how do you make it a more beautiful community. So that includes things like public art, placemaking, really those things that we have also heard from council over the past year. And one of the great ways that you can start to incorporate that is really doing it as part of your capital projects and in your plans up front. It is much cheaper to do it that way, and we tend to be able to leverage other grant dollars that we would not otherwise be able to if it was specifically a placemaking or an art project. Additionally, we have an upgrade to the city's website. One of the major conversations over the last year, and after reading really through the feedback that we received, is that people want to be able to access information in an easy way. They want to be able to connect and interact with the city. That being said, while our website does function today, it's not a great reflection of that. It's very difficult to find things on there. And quite frankly, the back end of it is worse than what you see. It is a very, it is a very manual process to update that, which means it all bottlenecks in two people in the organization. So we are recommending an objective to upgrade the city's website to a platform that will allow us to diversify who throughout the organization can update that, while still allowing for some checks and balances there in order to allow information to be shared more quickly with residents. Also, it would address the ADA compliance issue. And then finally, explore implementation of a community court program. This is an exciting one as well. Community court programs are programs that take low-level infractions, and rather than sending them through the traditional court system, it actually helps to look at what is the root cause behind something and help to connect people with services that can make them more successful community members moving forward. And then finally, high-performing government. This is the one that I have been personally referring to as sort of the people and framework vision area, largely because this is the behind-the-scenes pieces that will stand up and allow us to move forward all of those other vision areas. So you're going to see here there's a focus on the systems, the processes, and the resourcing that needs to happen in order to make city operations successful. So this includes everything from process improvement to having a skilled workforce that is capable of delivering the level of services that our residents have come to expect and deserve, as well as addressing those data gaps I mentioned earlier. There's some objectives in there around identifying where those specific data gaps are and how we begin to address those so that you as council can be provided better information in order to make your decisions moving forward. Here you can see those measures of success, crossing that staffing, resource, and process improvement areas. Some highlight objectives that I do want to pull out. So we do have the Albany Way training that is included in there. One of the key conversations we had throughout this process is we are asking for a fundamental shift in how the city operates to being more future focused. We need to make sure that staff is equipped with the training, understanding, and knowledge to be able to deliver on that, as well as an understanding in the shift of the values, mission, and vision to council's new priorities. Additionally, an exciting one is an objective around a shared operations campus between public works, parks, and facilities. So right now, those groups are spread across 3 different campuses, all of which require and are in desperate need of updates and, quite frankly, repair. And rather than looking at those as 3 individual spaces, knowing that they use a lot of the same equipment, that a lot of their work overlaps, we instead want to look at the current public works site as a potential shared space between those groups to improve collaboration, efficiency, and quite frankly, allow us to move forward without spending as much of the city's resources. And then finally, I'm going to actually group several objectives in one general theme, which is that theme of AI that you see through there. AI is quite frankly becoming a significant tool throughout life, quite frankly. And we are seeing more and more of that integrated into the services and technology that we utilize day to day here at the city. As part of that, though, there comes a need to balance the use of AI, the efficiencies it gains, with the risks, as well as the quality of product that is delivered to our residents and to our staff. And so we included several objectives around there, resulting around AI governance, how that rolls out and how it implements and how we integrate it into our day-to-day activities. So with that being said, I'm going to take a pause here as promised. I'm sure there are a lot of questions in regards to this section. So I'm going to turn that over for questions.
Council? Councilor Thompson?
Yeah, difficult endeavor. I respect the challenge because I went through roughly the 1,500 replies, and people make contradictory statements that they want it all. So teasing out that is very, and so I appreciate that. But I also kind of scoring, the concepts, the feelings of managing growth, slowing growth, or well-managed growth appeared significantly in the replies. Not overwhelmingly, are not completely, but a significant amount. In fact, probably maybe not over 50% +1, but a majority of the total. And I see that, and kudos to you, that was addressed and touched on in the takeaways, but I just don't see where that's really addressed within the goals. Maybe you can highlight that. You did talk about a redesign of the CIP process, and I can get that. That's a little bit of it, but I just think that was an area that I didn't see it jump out at me in the goals.
Yeah, so that actually goes back to the conversation we had around items that were left intentionally vague.
Okay.
Because that was a pretty significant conversation that we had on the staff side about how do you start to address and execute those pieces. And when we were looking through that and discussing that, we realized we were missing a key piece of information there, which is really what do Albany residents want as we grow. So that was that conversation around the comprehensive plan. It's my full expectation that once we go through that comprehensive planning process and the master planning processes that are associated with it, that you are going to see a number of more specific goals that relate to that area. We have to balance wanting to make sure we're not just jumping the gun and throwing something out there and trying to assume what residents want when we have not done intentional and good engagement, quite frankly, since 1980.
Okay.
Councilor McLeod?
Thank you. I think, is my microphone working? How about now?
Yeah, that's better.
There we go. Okay, I think it's pretty clear that we've heard from our residents about what they want with growth, and that it's less growth or slower growth. And I don't think that's vague at all. I think that when we're talking about how the city grows, um, to say that the results are vague from our residents, I don't think that's accurate. Can you elaborate on that?
So I'm not saying that the results are vague. What I'm saying is we left the objectives intentionally vague to be able to gather more of that specific feedback around what does growth look like. Because absolutely, we hear residents who are here in Albany, they love the Albany that they have today. We also hear from residents in that feedback that they want their families to be able to live here. They want to be able to have affordable housing here for them. And that does come with an element of growth in relation to it. We also know that we have in the pipeline a number of developments that even if we said today as a city that we are stopping growth, we're not going to approve any new developments, we would still continue to grow for the next 10 years. And so trying to balance how do you start to talk about that and how do you make that strategic and reflect the pieces that they value about the Albany today is really where that comprehensive planning piece comes in. So not saying that they're vague on that, just trying to recognize some of those pieces, absolutely.
So I think that
Yeah.
maybe there's something that could have been different about the way the questions were asked, in that you asked, what does growth look like? And the responses are seeming to say, we don't want to know what growth looks like because we don't want growth. And so it seems like with the responses that we're getting, there's a little bit of pushback. And so maybe those types of questions could have been phrased a little differently in the questionnaires.
And to be fair, I don't specifically remember how we had the questions phrased. I know that there were probably 7 of them that were around how does development, how does growth, what does the future of Albany look like? But I couldn't speak to, I don't remember the specifics of the phrasing on those. But again, that gets to a space where when we talk about the comprehensive plan, we incorporated in that proposal a very significant emphasis on community engagement on that one. We're talking a months-long process in relation to community engagement throughout that, and quite frankly, at several touch points. And that is because you can have that ability to get much more specific and hear those very detailed responses from residents in that space.
Some of the specific resident feedback that I heard around the survey was that the questions were a little bit skewed, and that they were having difficulty answering the questions because in some portions of the survey, it was to, for example, rank a certain number of things in order that they wanted them. And it felt like some of the feedback I got from residents was that, well, they don't want some of those things, but to rank it at the bottom, or maybe second or third from the bottom, is still ranking it kind of higher than they wanted it. So maybe we need to look at a little different format of the questionnaire in the future.
Yeah, fair assessment. I don't know, Ashley, if you have anything that you want to add to that. Staff actually didn't develop the questions, so.
Okay.
Or if we just want to take that moving forward. Ashley, you are muted. I'm looking at a very small box of her here.
Oh, thank you. I can speak to the survey design a little bit. The idea with the survey is that we offer a variety of questions. Some are open-ended, and then some are ranking. Some have multiple choice, some are check boxes, and we do that intentionally to be able to collect different types of input. And also, it would be really laborious for community members to have all open-ended questions. That being said, when we conducted the analysis of all of the comments, we're looking specifically at what residents put in the open-ended questions to determine the themes of what they want. The information with ranking, that's like a subcategory of like helpful information to look at, but those weren't the driving pieces that that influenced the development of the goals or the supporting objectives.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor, is anyone else? Counselor Smith?
Couple of things. I was part of that population of 25 to 27,000 in 1980 when the comp plan was put together, so I appreciate the effort to update it. Albany is a different place. Albany is still the same place that I moved to, however, in that it's a place that people want to live. And you walk out your front door and you find a friend. And it's easy to get around if you live on this side of the river. But that's a different matter. I think addressing the issue of skewed questions, I think the way people read the answers, it also, you're looking at the answers through your own lenses. And I looked through the answers, not all of them. I trusted the summaries in the report, but what I saw and what I was hearing in the verbal report this evening is the number one issue for the people I hear from, and certainly in most of the places I go, is terrible streets. That rises to the top. It's risen to the top. It's here for everybody to see. People want us to fix our streets. That is infrastructure. And so keep that in mind as we continue our discussions later today and as this plan progresses. This is so different from the original Albany Strategic Plan from 2007. It's clear that people are thinking forward, that we are adapting to the world, the changing world we live in, the rapidly changing world, and assessing things on the fly and planning for the future. I think it's incorrect to say that we are not planning our infrastructure to keep up with what's happening. A lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes that people don't see. Public Works is the biggest department that we have. They do all the work that people don't think about. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to think about what happens when you flush or what happens when you turn the tap on and the water comes out. We're constantly planning to keep up with replacing things that are wearing out, making sure they last longer, making sure we get the best deal, that they serve the most people and the most efficiently. That kind of planning goes on all the time. I don't know if it's I see it keeping up with what's happening, and I can't put a stop to growth in Albany. I could move away, but that's one person. And that's a really basic, probably ridiculous thing to say, but I don't know how we stop people from wanting to build here, wanting to do business here, wanting to live here when we love it as much as we do. And we tell our friends, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And here we have a roadmap for taking care of it in a systematic way, in a way that is flexible, that can change over time. It's, as I've said, so many times people are sick of hearing it. Albany has grown up since I moved here, since all of us moved here, really, even if you've only been here for a couple of years, it's a different place. It's grown up, and this plan has grown up to reflect that in a way that I never dreamed possible. This is really stunning. These are good changes. They're changes that can be changed, and it's very, very thoughtful. And I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to both Sarah Singer Wilson's people and to Kayla and the staff that worked on this. I know it's hard. The first pass of this was on my original plan of things to get started, and it happened. And I'm glad that we're reviewing it every 4 years, because I think future councils will also make their adjustments as we move forward. And I'm excited about it. I think it's great. And when I go over this plan, the previous plan, with the young people at our schools, they have no idea, and they go home and share that with their parents, and their parents get excited about it, and they call me and say, "Can I like to talk to you about this section?" And so when that engagement happens, it's educating more people in the community, because they talk to their friends and they talk to their friends, and it gets around. When I have 4 high school kids sitting looking at our strategic plan on their phones. Did you see this? The mayor showed us this. And I think that the strategic plan is a document that people can refer to. If they have questions about it, they can send us a form, a contact form, and people do that. And I think that this is a good plan. I think the only issue I had was the housing wasn't as elevated as I would like, but that's just me. That's my thing with housing affordability. But I got a phone call from a client. She's in her 80s, and she called me and she was really happy. One of her grandchildren bought a home out at Meadowlark, and she's moving back here from California. You know, she's bringing babies with her, right? Other places are closing schools, and we got people moving here with babies. I was at the farmer's market last weekend, and I got trapped amongst 15 strollers of these babies, and every one of them lived in the city of Albany, Oregon. That's a really good sign. So thank you for the work on this staff. Thank you for the work on this council. Thank you for Sarah Singer Wilson's people. You can go ahead and continue if there's more.
I do have a question, Mayor. Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Excuse me. I just wanted to say that I think, wanted to echo what Counselor Smith said. I think that it's a compliment to us that people do want to come here, build, live, work, pay, do business, etc. My question is, Kayla, you mentioned that the city is becoming or trying to become more future focused and I guess technology based. I do have a question about how are we doing that for our residents? Obviously, some of our academic institutions in this community is no longer providing like community education, or it's been scaled back. And if we're becoming more future focused as a city, I would hate for our residents to be left behind in that aspect. So is there anything that we see or could do coming up the pike to help to navigate them through that process?
So I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have anything that comes top of mind for me when I was talking about being future focused. I was really talking about the services that the city provides. But certainly if that's a broader topic that the council wants to pursue, that's the type of visionary discussion that is ripe for this type of document.
Thank you, Counselor. Next step, please.
Kayla, do you mind if
Yeah.
I wanted to address a question that came up earlier before we go into the implementation?
Yep.
There were some comments made around that, since I was the one that analyzed all of the data, that came up around the anti-growth or, concerns around growth. And I want to just make clear for council and for folks who are tuning in, that this particular issue was really split in the data. There was definitely a strong portion of the data that was asking for to slow the growth. Please, stop the high density housing. So that was very clear. And there's also a strong subset of the data of folks that are asking for, more opportunities for affordable or really accessible housing opportunities. That also shows up in a desire for increased job opportunities for living wage jobs. So people are looking for increased housing opportunities, increased job opportunities. It also showed up on how people want to shop and access amenities. There was a sub theme that came up where people were asking for more amenities within the city. Like, I want to be able to live in Albany and get all of my needs met here and not have to drive elsewhere and be able to spend my tax dollars here. And so this particular issue that came up, there's really these two sides of the data, and we explored those as a team and with staff at length. And so I think, as Kayla spoke to, the need to have flexibility in the plan and dig a little bit deeper and conduct more significant community outreach that reaches even more folks and can hear, well, what does that specifically mean to you, will be really valuable in this process. So I just wanted to make those comments before you move on. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley.
Okay, so now I'm going to move us into the implementation system. So how do we move forward? I advance it this time. Okay. And so here you can see a roadmap of kind of the next 4 years in relation to this plan. And I am going to make a little bit of a correction to a comment the mayor made just a moment ago around, we update this plan every 4 years. Really, we've been very intentional in the planning process this time around to make sure that there are touch points and flexibility built into this process so we don't feel like we have this document that is immovable for the next 4 years when the environment, the information available to us is changing. That being said, one of the biggest areas that a strategic plan can fail is if it becomes too flexible that it's no longer a plan, but also on the flip side of that, if it becomes too firm that it cannot adjust. So here you see, just for orientation, year one, that assumes the start of July 1, 2026, but I will tell you if there are areas of opportunity, we will get started on those ahead of that July 1 date. And that is very much focused on an implementation year, really starting to get this woven through those work plans that dictate the day-to-day activities of our departments. You're also going to see during this a strategic plan website and dashboard go live. I got to see a preview of it from Matt Harrington today, and it's going to feel very different from what our residents are used to encountering on our website, much more user-friendly, much more storytelling oriented to help them understand what this plan does and what it is going to, how it's moving forward. And then also this is gonna be a big year because believe it or not, budget process kicks off in just a couple of months. I know it's hard to
Yay.
believe that, but it's a 9-month process. And so you're gonna start seeing this be part of that conversation. And then year two, you'll see that built in with a check-in year. We've got the surveying happening for POCO, as well as council discussion and work plan adjustments based on that budget. So again, building in that flexibility piece. Year three, very, very similar to year one. And then year four is that big holistic update. We do have touch points built into every year through the annual report, as well as strategic plan updates occurring on the quarterly basis. They are going to get rolled into the quarterly financial update that has been introduced to you. And that is to further emphasize this relationship between the broader vision and goals that are set by council and how resourcing plays into that execution. And then finally, this is a slide you've seen before. You saw it during the budget process. Sarah's group just made it prettier with some graphic design here. But just a reminder of that strategic budgeting cycle, because that is going to be the next sort of big touch point you see on this. We have over the last several months been in that green engaged space. We are now in that planning space. And then you're going to see us moving into over the next few months that budgeting space. So how does this look and show up in terms of resourcing? How does this play through those long-term financial models, and how do we make this happen? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley for our final slide.
Thank you. All right, next steps. Where do we go from here? You've heard a lot of information tonight around the engagement, how that showed up in the resulting plan, and how the plan's going to be implemented and updated and used over time. And so thinking about next steps from where we go tonight, over the past week or two, between May 4th and the 13th, we hosted a community review period of the draft strategic plan. We hosted the draft strategic plan on the city's website and then pushed out a variety of messaging to the community to inviting them to review the plan and to complete a quick survey to be able to share their thoughts and feedback on that plan. So we have been going through those comments. We received, I think, roughly 31 survey responses and 1 email response with comments. And so checking in to see if there's any priorities that we missed or anything that we missed or if something wasn't accurately reflected in the plan. And so we've been going through those comments together as a team, and then we'll use that information to incorporate the feedback that we did receive into the final version of the strategic plan that will come to the council for your consideration to adopt on May 27th. And just a couple comments about what we've heard most in those comments. Just a desire to see a stronger need to address homelessness, affordable housing, street maintenance, traffic safety, and a desire for more public transportation. Those were kind of the key things that came up from those 30 comments that we did receive. And so, given those comments, we had discussion internally as a project team about how to really provide additional context to how the plan is going to be addressing those things. It's, as you've seen tonight, just with the all of the amazing examples that provided additional context that Kayla provided into what just those highlighting some of those tactical objectives and like what does that really look like and how could that move the needle and what's the potential impact there. There's a lot of context that goes into that it's difficult to capture in a single sentence of what that objective is. And so because of that, we're adding a few pages into the strategic plan that are narrative focused, that really address those top concerns that we received and explain what the city is going to be doing to be able to address those through the strategic plan. So you heard earlier, Kayla mentioned comprehensive plan. Transportation system plan and other planning efforts, and explaining how those all fold into that broader conversation around growth in the city, what that looks like, and how that's going to show up over time. So there's a section that's specifically focused on growth. And then there's also a section specifically focused on the complexities of homelessness and how the city is working with regional partners and in a variety of different ways and using different tools and methods to be able to create spaces that feel safe and accessible to all while doing the best that the city can to be able to connect folks with resources so that they can be they can have the access to those resources as well. So know that there are the version that's going to be coming later will have that additional context, and hopefully that helps to further strengthen those connections between what we heard in the community outreach and the resulting strategic plan, and hopefully encourage people to continue to stay engaged because there's, again, more opportunities for community input as these other plans are developed and explored.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor McLeod has a question or a comment.
Thank you. Kayla, recently you asked us to share a link to the draft survey, or I'm sorry, to the draft plan, and ask people to fill out a survey. I think this was last week.
Yeah.
And some of the feedback that I received from the community was that it was difficult for them to be asked to review a 36-page document before filling out a survey, and that it was quite time-consuming, and that it was difficult to ask members of the community to do that. I was then told by someone in the Civic Academy that they received a 2-page briefing on the
so we had
on
the
the
social
strategic
media
plan.
post that went out, and that was
Right.
framed for social media. And I
Okay.
will say specifically, we point to the full survey, to the full plan, because we are looking for specific feedback on those objectives.
Okay.
And as you saw, there's a lot of them in there. It is
Yeah.
impossible to fit those objectives into 2 pages or a page.
Mhm.
That being said, the flyer you're referring to is the flyer that we actually put out at our counters and across city facilities.
Okay.
And so that was the sort of in-person medium that we had as well.
Okay.
Just trying to hit based on the different, medium. That being said, we actually, Matt Harrington, our communications manager, he is absolutely wonderful. He built this in such a way that we are going to be very easily able to switch out this QR code to the new website and transparency portal for the strategic plan. And then you will have that to be able to distribute so that you have this very quick reference on the goals, but they can also link out and see that more detailed information. So we
Okay.
made this intentionally one that is easy to pivot to the implementation side.
Great. I just wanted to highlight that the specific feedback that I received was that it was like, hey, look at this thing and fill out this survey, and then they click it and it's 36 pages before you
Homework.
even get to
It's
the
homework.
before you even get to the survey, it's read these 36 pages. So that was a little off-putting to a lot of the people that got back to me on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
we don't have anything else from our presentation. So if you guys are good with your questions, comments, we will take that feedback back and we will be back in just a few weeks with that updated version.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well done. Good job, staff.
Thank you.
Sarah Singer Wilson's folks, Ashley.
Thank you.
Okay, my goodness, there's a lot going on today. Okay, next, before we do public comment, I'm gonna take a 10-minute break. Let's make a 10-minute break. Be back at 7:57. Be actually 13 minutes. Be back at 8 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you for your patience with us. We'll go ahead and reconvene the meeting at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, May 13th. Next on tonight's agenda is public comment. Public comment is a time for Albany residents to speak and for councilors to listen. The council won't discuss topics or make decisions during public comment, but will take comments and requests under advisement. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes and must follow the council's rules and observe the same standards of decorum. If unable to do so, they'll be asked to step down and take a seat in the audience for the rest of the meeting. When you get to the microphone, please give your name and state whether or not you live in the city of Albany, Oregon. And council, we did have some public comment that was written. It was on the dais. Did you get a chance to take a look at that? Thank you very much for that. First up is Matthew Van Bimmel.
Hello, my name is Matthew Van Bemmel, and I am a citizen of Albany. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Albany City Council. And my name is Matthew Van Bemmel, and I'm here to talk today about, to ask the city to adjust the railroad crossing between Queen Avenue and Pacific Boulevard. This crossing is extremely rough and difficult to drive over. There are multiple large bumps, and drivers have to cross 4 railroad tracks at the same time. Even when I slow down as much as possible, the crossing causes a severe jolt to my body. I am disabled, and the condition of this crossing causes me real physical harm every day. Every time I drive over those tracks, it hurts my back and aggravates my body. The impact is strong enough that going over the crossing feels like being on a roller coaster. And if I wanted to put my body through that kind of punishment, I would go ride an actual roller coaster. But this is not an amusement park ride. This is a public roadway that disabled residents rely on every single day. For many people, this crossing may simply feel rough or uncomfortable, but for people with disabilities, chronic pain, spinal problems, mobility limitations, or other medical conditions, it can be physically painful and harmful. Something as routine as driving across the town should not be an experience that causes anxiety about pain. I recently contacted ODOT project manager Jim Dole regarding this crossing. He informed me that the larger crossing project is not even expected to begin until 2029. And he has passed my concerns, though, along to ODOT Rail as well. But for disabled residents, 2029 is a long time away. That means years of daily pain for people who have no choice but to use this road. That's why I'm asking the Albany City Council not only to support repairs to this crossing, but also to actively pressure ODOT Rail to address the disability impacts of this crossing sooner rather than later. I also ask the city to advocate to the railroad company that owns the land and the tracks to pursue quicker repairs or improvement for the ADA and disabled community. Accessibility is not only about ramps and sidewalks, it is also about making sure public infrastructure can safely be used by everyone, including disabled residents whose bodies are more vulnerable to harsh impacts and uneven roadways. I appreciate the work that the council does for the community, and I hope that you will consider the real physical impact that this crossing has on people like me and others in Albany who live with disabilities every day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Brian Bristow.
Hello, I'm Brian Bristow. I'm a resident of Albany. A comment about the airport presentation is between Aurora and Eugene, we're kind of a unique airport in that we have several hotels and 2 restaurants accessible through security doors in the fence. I'm just thinking, I think Salem, you'd probably have to walk half a mile to the closest hotel. And Eugene doesn't have anything on the airport. And, it's just a unique thing about our airport.
Thank you. Brett Kaiser.
Council, Mayor, thank you. Brett Kaiser, I am an Albany resident. I've been here my whole life. I was born in Albany and made my first solo flight at the Albany airport when I was a junior in high school. I would just like to urge the council and the mayor to keep an open mind about what an asset the Albany airport is to the city of Albany. I've been to a lot of airports during my flying career, and Albany is a really, really nice airport. And as far as future growth of the city of Albany, I think that the airport is a significant asset for future growth, business, things of that nature. And that's basically all I got to say. Just keep an open mind and realize what an asset it is. And you've already got it. You own it. It's paid for. It may cost a little bit of money from time to time, but city parks cost money too. So it's an awesome asset from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Yep.
Next up is Mel Hoffman.
Hopefully this doesn't reflect my Marine voice. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Chair of the Airport Advisory Commission, I wish to convey the Commission's support and concurrence with Mr. Trombino's submission in tonight's agenda as stated in pages 28 through 30. The Airport Advisory Commission recently met and identified several key points we believe directly impact the projected $200,000 biennial deficit. 1, utilizing the historical hangar for multifunctional purposes in addition to the museum aspect. 2, retain all existing airport lands within the fence using ECHO's terms. Develop and lease those properties, thus generating revenue to the city via the airport. Identify and develop additional locations around the airport to be utilized for constructing hangars such as southeast, southwest, northwest. 4, redesign, or we've understood for several years that the ODOT was wanting to redesign, redevelop the Santiam I-5 overpass. We understood they wanted to redesign the Knox Butte I-5 frontage road interface. And we would encourage the city to support that proposal, move it towards fruition, which would help the airport in the long term. We encourage you to seek additional FAA funding to extend both ends of the runway in conjunction with the redesign, redevelopment of those intersections. 6, plan for the future, prepare the airport properties to be build ready. In other words, put in the drainage, the pavement, and seek, if at all possible, EPA, FAA permitting, etc. 7, build multiple helipads. This is for fire suppression, training, emergency recovery, and military training. 8, look to future technologies. Currently along the I-5 corridor, the charging stations for electric vehicles, cars, is very limited. Aviation is moving further and further towards aviation or electronics.
Thank you, Mel.
Okay.
Can you
thank
please provide that so you can get us a copy of it?
Sure.
Thank you. Next up is Luke Dalton, is that right? Well, thank you.
Yes, hello, my name's Luke Doughton, and I live a little outside of Albany. I've had a business here for the last 18 years or so, though, and when I was younger, I went out to the Albany airport and started getting, learning how to fly out there. And I've been connected with the airport in one way or another since about 1992. And back then, I also worked at Reliant Aviation, and my job was to, gas up airplanes, that kind of thing. And I ended up getting to know quite a few of the corporate pilots that came and went from Albany back then. And I would say there was quite a bit more corporate aircraft activity in the early 90s. But what struck me about, just based on that experience, what struck me about the report that we got from Eco Northwest was the point about the $6 million of economic activity. So it seems to me there's a lot of focus on the deficit, which is understandable. That's very important to consider. But I think that $6 million of activity we could focus on expanding that and attracting more corporate activity at the airport. And that way, the entire community benefits from the airport through the activity that it generates in the community. And so that was just the one thing that kind of jumped out at me, was there is the deficit part of it, but we should also focus on trying to attract businesses that will generate activity that benefits everyone economically. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Jennifer Roque, Simpson Park and Talking Water Gardens.
Prefer to stand, is that okay?
If you can speak
Oh,
to the
mic.
microphone. yeah.
Gotcha, okay. So I'm Jennifer Roque, and I'm here representing Jesus Christ, first of all, but I also am trying to be an advocate for a population of the residents of Albany that is very unseen. I brought some friends with me, as you've noticed, and they were red tagged yesterday, and if nobody knows what that means they were evicted from their park. And some of them were given 24 hours to move, some of them 2 months, some of them 2 weeks. They were all given different answers. And we have been down at the park for a year and a half, Soup of the Soul. That is what our outreach is. This is my friend Lori. And we have been servicing our homeless friends, and that's the last time I'll call them that, down at the park by bringing them Jesus and food and different items that they need. We're also trying to be an advocate for them to not enable them, but to help them up and out of the park. I've been gathering resources throughout the city. We have so many resources in this awesome city of Albany. I love it here. But we're not working together well with them. And I'm wondering why we have so many resources and so many homeless people. So I've taken it on myself, and God has called me here to be able to put those resources together and help our friends. And my most urgent need is to wonder why, if you can give me answers as to why they were evicted from their park, their home, and to go on from that. I know I only have a few minutes. In a city of, I heard it quoted a couple of times tonight, 60,000 people, there's not one domestic violence shelter here. And some of my friends at the park are there because of domestic violence. People think drugs, alcohol, when they think homelessness. That is not so. We have, there's people that are burned out, fires. There's people that have been abused all their lives and they have no idea how to live. Nobody's ever taught them. I'm not saying that's on your shoulders, but as a city, I think this should be taken care of. Have anything to add?
I'm a lifetime resident of Albany, and one of the things.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Lori Geisler. Lifetime resident of Albany. I was born and raised here. One of the things in all your presentations, they kept talking about inclusiveness and welcoming. And I'm embarrassed to say that's not what I get when I'm down at the park. People come and they aren't welcoming to our friends. They aren't inclusive to our friends. And they are our friends. I mean,
Yes.
We've been doing this for almost 2 years, and they are amazing people. They have such gifts to offer. We need to work together to find them housing. You talk about affordable housing, they need affordable housing too.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to do.
Thank
So
you
we
very
love to
much.
work together.
Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
Thank
time.
you. Next on your agenda item is number 6, is informational briefing, staff reports, local fuel tax discussion. Paul Trombino, pages 203 to 210.
It's okay, sorry. Where's the Zoom presentation of this?
Can see her.
Here we go. Somebody's email.
Yes, sorry. No.
The longer you take, the more questions I'm going to have.
Yeah,
Just warning
I
you.
know.
I was thinking
You
the same
should.
thing.
There we go. Good grief.
Like this.
This is the first.
Take a picture.
Wow. I apologize, number one. As you can see, I needed to borrow a computer tonight, so I apologize for this. Again, we are here tonight, thank you for the time, to share results of the 2 transportation listening sessions that we held April 1st and April 15th, and to outline some recommended next steps. I also have Bobby Schuler from Swift Public Affairs with me to answer any questions you may have about the listening sessions or other items. The sessions were facilitated by Swift Public Affairs and gave us direct, unfiltered input from approximately 24 residents across a range of neighborhoods. The memo in your packet summarizes the full discussion in detail. Our goal tonight is to highlight key themes that emerged and present some recommendations for your consideration. Hope I can get this to work. Yeah. Residents expressed deep concern about the condition of our roads. I think that was an earlier conversation, but this feedback also, I think, went well beyond just pavement quality. We saw clear geographic disparity in road conditions. Older neighborhoods like Monteith and Hackelman, especially 3rd through 8th Streets on the Lion side, were repeatedly described as horrible, while newer developments across the community are in much better shape. There is a trust concern rooted in past project execution. Residents cited multiple examples of roads being repaved and then immediately torn up for utility work. We heard a strong management versus funding debate. Some residents viewed that the past estimate of $12 million in annual transportation funding deficit as the issue, while others believe that we have sufficient resources but need better prioritization, coordination, and accountability first. Additionally, consistent with themes included heavy vehicle damage from dump trucks, garbage trucks, and semi-traffic, very strong support for preventive maintenance, communication, and transparency gaps, and some we would call planning fatigue. And what we mean by that is the sense that we keep planning and replanning without visible follow-through. Overall, the community is engaged, cautious, and pragmatic. Residents care deeply about transportation infrastructure and are open to solution, including new revenue, though trust, fairness, visible results will be decisive. The listening sessions provide a roadmap, and as a result, we recommend Council direct staff to take the following actions. The communication plan will include plain language, mailed updates, an online dashboard, and clear explanations of prioritization criteria, project sequencing, especially with utilities, budgets, and preventative maintenance return on investment. For community outreach, we will start by sending direct update to everyone who attended the listening sessions and continue robust engagement as we refine funding strategies and project priorities. The defined project list will prioritize residential street repairs with a special focus on long neglected areas such as Monteith and Hackelman, and improve coordination between road and utility work to prevent repeated disruptions. Funding options will include a complete financial strategy. This analysis will include clear data on current capacity versus needs, a defined scope for what transportation funding includes, and an enforceable accountability and reporting message so we improve our processes before advancing any new revenue proposals. The funding options analysis staff will be reviewing the following revenue tools and complementary strategies. These are being presented as opportunities for consideration while we work through defining specific projects and building a complete financial strategy for all projects. Much of this will be underway shortly as we will begin plans to update our maintenance improvement program, our transportation system plan, which was discussed earlier, a new Safe Routes for All or Vision Zero Safety Action Plan, which was also mentioned, and an updated capital improvement plan. We will analyze these together with clear data, needs versus current capacity, and a design scope for funding and strong accountability measures. So with that, we're happy to take any questions you may have.
Council, any questions?
I have a question.
Councilor Smith?
What's the timeline? How long is this going to take before we get back to a let's do something about it?
From a project
decision?
perspective?
Yes.
Yeah. So on May 27th, I'll be in front of you to talk through what the transportation system plan is and some of those details. We expect to kick that process off in June. The data collection will kind of be the first piece. So I expect we'll really start, and the safety analysis will go first. We really want to understand what the safety is in the city to really understand what project priorities should come out of that to really address some clear safety issues. And so I expect that probably in the first part of next year, we will really get into being able to lay out clear projects and start to define what those scopes and what those projects could look like.
Okay.
The councilors? Councilor Newton?
So I brought up a meeting or two ago about dates for running a gas tax or what have you. I'm wondering, would that be like the appropriate time to kind of discuss that? right now, so we can get some consensus. So I don't think it should be this fall. I think right now it's,
Yeah, I'll just jump in. Paul just mentioned activity on their end and through the first of 27. So I think it starts to line up nicely with the May 27 election, which is also, if I recall, the previous consultants who analyzed that type of thing suggested an election like that as a positive one for us to shoot for.
I recall the same thing. Councilor McLeod?
Thank you. We need to get these roads fixed, like 10 years ago. So while I want to put this on the ballot when we think we'll have the best opportunity to do that. It kind of seems like it's really urgent, like maybe we shouldn't wait. So I'm kind of going back and forth with that. But definitely what I'm hearing from residents is that we need to get these roads fixed. We need to get them fixed now. We need to get them fixed whatever way we can with whatever funding we can as soon as possible. So that's just what I'm hearing. Thank you.
I think we're all hearing the same thing.
looks like Mr. Schuler has a comment.
Yeah, I just.
Mr. Schuler?
Yeah, so as far as the timing comes with the ballot measure, the sentiment that we heard from the community was yes, almost unanimously, we need to fix the roads. But it was not, let's hurry up and do
the
this.
microphone, please.
It was not a sentiment of let's hurry up and do this. It was a sentiment of the city needs to get this right. And there's a lot of communication that needs to happen. There's a lot of misconceptions that need to be straightened up through city communications before anything was to go to the ballot. And there's a good amount of work that the staff need to do to identify specific projects, which was a key component to what the residents were asking for in these listening sessions. They want to know specifically what the money is going to go towards. They want very specific guardrails, almost like a bond, where there's a possible sunset date. And so that would be my caution towards trying to throw it on the November ballot.
You can finish. I have a comment, and you can finish.
So I'll just wrap up my thoughts on timing by saying, looking at this like from an electoral pattern perspective, which is my job, May of 28 is probably the soonest that I would target. In 2027, you cut your electorate in half. So you're looking at like a 20-ish% turnout rate, and it just shrinks dramatically the amount of people that you can try to persuade and try to turn out to vote for your initiative. May or November of 28 are going to be your best bets as far as matching timing with the project specifications and everything that the city needs to accomplish.
So how do we get the roads started to be fixed before then?
Yeah, so I would say that, part of what we're going to look at is especially our maintenance improvement program. And I think there's, a big key piece here. Is there opportunity to improve our process? The answer is yes, right? And so we want to take a look at that. And I think we want to try to get some wins early on, even as this process is going on, that will lead to, as the rest of the projects really shake out, and what that program or potentially could look like. And that process improvement is a key ingredient that I think what we heard people want to see. They want to understand, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? All those types of things. And then showing some results from that. So that gives us some time between now, especially in early next year, where we think we can make some changes and hopefully have some people feel an impact, and especially in some of the neighborhoods that I just discussed earlier, and that will lead, we think, to a better process overall. Like wherever from an initiative that comes forward, those are really important. They need to see some sort of process improvement and action coming out of the department, where we're trying to really do some things to make the best improvement that we can with what we have. And
So
I
just
expect to do that.
one more follow-up. What can we do now that would give us a easy win when it comes to fixing the roads? Is there something we can do now or very soon that can get at least some of these roads into a condition that is going to be acceptable to the residents in our community?
So my answer is I believe so. I don't have that answer here today, but I think I'll have it soon. I just can't tell you exactly when, but I think within the next few months we'll have a better shakeout, because some of the processes are really beginning, especially with our CIP and some other things. So it'll allow us to sort of really get a better sense for what we could do in a very short term, which I would expect to be early next year.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so loving what I was hearing, because if I had my druthers,
Mhm.
I would have this be a time-limited ballot measure. I think that's a great way to build trust. Folks here are not into like having any extra taxes, right? But hey, our roads, they stink, right? So if we had like 5 cent, 6, I don't know what it is. The state's not coming to save us. That ballot measure this fall is probably going to fail. Like, let's just be honest. The state's not going to save us. We got to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and do this. I don't want to put a road service fee as a burden on, my neighbor Helen across the street who drives hardly ever, or and she's paying the same as me, who's like zipping to Costco back and forth, getting a hot dog with my husband for lunch. Like, let's be honest, I'm putting more miles on our Albany roads. It should be based on a gas tax, and we also then capture the folks coming right off the freeway, going to get gas at Costco,
Like Portland does.
Yeah, or everything like pay to use the road. People come from Corvallis, they're getting gas here. They're using our roads. They're doing their thing here. I love the idea of how you're going to structure this like a bond. I think that's such a great way to like show, hey, we're going to, with this money, if you approve this gas tax for 5 years, we're going to do wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And if you look how Springfield has done this with their bonds, I love how they've laid it out in the voter pamphlets. I think it's phenomenal for communicating the value of what the residents are going to receive if they vote for this, if they vote for that funding path. And I think that is a winning solution. And I do think actually that if it's possible, it would be nice to just do it sooner, May 27. I know we got to get it right, but I really think that we can get there.
Comment?
Counselor Smith?
There is something in place, very close to in place, that we could do sooner than a gas tax. That's our transportation utility. We voted that into law in December of '23. It's sitting there waiting for a rate to be attached to it and bills to go out. I understand that it's not considered equitable to everyone, but I also recognize the traffic that is generated by non-driving people and people who don't drive very often and people who drive a lot. And I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, so please bear with me. 4 garbage trucks a week, FedEx, UPS, Domino's Pizza, DoorDash, Uber, Amazon, you name it, it happens. The mail, we still get mail delivery in Albany. It won't last forever, but that still happens. And then we use our own cars and we go pick up our friends. And our streets are used in ways that nobody imagined 40 years ago. They're used in ways that we didn't imagine before the pandemic. I walk my dog every day, as you all know, and on Fridays, I observe how many recycling carts are full of Amazon boxes. So I'm still an advocate for the transportation utility. It charges people, it's as a steady source of income, unlike a gas tax. It accommodates electric vehicles as well as carbon generating ones. And let me point out the comment about structuring the gas tax the way Portland has done it. Their gas tax is sunsetting since they have adopted a transportation utility. So everybody does it differently. I strongly support a transportation utility. We can do it.
Counselor Newton?
So I'm so glad you mentioned mail trucks or delivery vehicles, because so I went down a rabbit hole on how other communities in our nation and state have been funding their roads, especially when they're, constrained like ours. There's one that is considered a less regressive initiative, and it's not directly tied to gas. It's a prepared food tax. So there's like a small fee if you're like going through a drive-through, you're going to McDonald's or whatever, you're going to get a prepared food. My Costco hot dog, I might get a tax on my Costco hot dog that I love to get. Where else can get? I'm not sponsored by Costco. Gosh, this is so embarrassing. I should stop mentioning it. Or there are other communities that have also done they collect a delivery fee. There's a delivery tax. That is something to also consider. There are different alternative ways if you're concerned specifically about those things, especially since I do know that our mail cars, and I know like some of the FedEx or Amazon cars are electric, right? So that's a different avenue as well to look at. I do not think that burdening our community members with a regressive street maintenance tax, if they are, I think it should be like more of like a use it thing. And I understand people are still using the roads if they're like, getting something delivered, but there's a way to capture that in a different way.
That's a huge discussion to have.
It's a
about-
huge discussion.
Yeah.
I've read way too much into this, and
No,
it's
no, I
been
mean,
it's
it
been
is-
really
if-
enlightening to
if
see
we
how
enter-
other communities are doing
If we
things.
entertain that, it would be interesting discussion. I know Ashland has a food tax and beverage tax down there as well. But I will tell you this, I mentioned a sugar fee for sugary drinks, like one in the store.
My Diet Coke.
And I got drugged over the coals back then, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I'm really annoyed that aluminum prices are going up and it's impacting,
Everything,
not just Diet Coke, but yes.
everything, yeah.
The Diet Coke that you purchased from Costco, perhaps?
Perhaps that,
Okay, thank you very much, Council. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm sure we'll hear more from you soon, in the future.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on tonight's agenda is business from the council. Last week I started with Ward 3. Last time I started Ward 3. We'll start with Ward 2 today. Councilor Van Dremlin?
I just have one item to bring forward for business from the council tonight. So yesterday, council received an email from Mayor Johnson detailing that there would be a new process this year for the city manager's evaluation. And that raised some concerns for me. That the process, it's a significant departure from last year's process. And the process outlined itself was not of particular concern for me. But the fact that we were simply notified that this was happening, when the city council are the ones who have the authority over the city manager's employment and evaluation. So my concern is more for the process rather than the process of the evaluation that was outlined, if that makes sense. Those both have process in them, but distinct things. And I sent some messages, got some responses from the Director of Human Resources and from the Deputy City Manager outlining some more details as to how that may have happened. It was a little bit different than how it was framed in the mayor's email. Sounds like there was a little bit more process than had been outlined in, or decision-making process than had been outlined in the initial message that threw up my red flags. But what I would like to see happen is for the council to give the green light to that process to go forward rather than simply say, well, we're changing the process. Here you go, council. This is what we're going to do. So I move that either tonight, if it's possible to do so, or at our next council meeting, and perhaps the deputy city manager can give me some perspective on what's possible. I would like that new process, the rationale for it, to all be outlined for the council in an open meeting, so that we can vote on whether or not we would like to proceed with that as the council.
We have a motion. I'll second that motion.
Can I do my job? Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Sometimes you don't ask.
He just seconded
Okay.
it. You don't need to call for
Okay.
seconds, sir.
Okay, and then, so we have, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Call for discussion on that, or are we just voting?
Is there any discussion? I don't think
Yeah,
there
I
is.
no, I have
Go ahead,
no
please.
we're on discussion. Yeah, yeah, it surprised me too. From the last evaluation process, I don't think the process was the issue. I felt like I had my concerns and I got a chance to put them out in both the written paper and then the discussion that we had. I just don't see the need for a consultant, and I saw the message, a later message from the Director of Human Resources saying that it came out of discussions from last year, and I really do not recall where that came from. So my inclination is to continue the process that happened in the past where we reply to a staff member who compiles them. And then we have a discussion about it. I think it's as simple as that. I'm loath to spend the money on a consultant, even though I realize it probably wouldn't be very much. But it's work that we have to do, and I think we can do it.
Counselor Van Drummond, then Counselor Smith. Over here.
I would like to yield some time to the deputy city manager to perhaps give us some perspective and maybe answer some questions as we discuss this.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to provide some background, so over the years, the city manager's process has gone through different iterations, and that has largely been controlled, or the process itself has largely been designed by staff. So historically, the contract is laid out that the city manager is to receive an annual evaluation. It was first done through the city manager's office directly. Feedback was received that was a conflict. It was then moved into the HR office. And every year when that evaluation is done, our HR director does solicit feedback from all parties involved, which is not just the council. There's also a 360 piece that occurs from the direct reports and staff, and then also Peter as the recipient of that feedback in regards to what worked and what didn't work in the process. So last year, following that evaluation, the feedback that we received in that, it's pretty across the board. We had some concerns in regards to having staff be an unbiased facilitator in that process. We had some concerns that were iterated in regards to having the mayor be the facilitator of that discussion rather than there being a neutral party for the council meeting on that. We also received feedback from the staff side because over the last several years, as part of the 360 evaluation, we have only received on average 2 to 3 responses from the entirety of the director level team. And the feedback on that was in regards to, again, running that through a member of staff. They were uncomfortable, even though the feedback is provided in aggregate to both Peter and the council. They were uncomfortable with that information coming from them directly to a staff member who they work with, who would know that identity and what was said. Because unfortunately, as much as we try to keep everything confidential, you know how a workplace is. And so that was a concern that we heard from that side. And it's very difficult for our city manager when that is a huge piece of the day-to-day operations to not be able to get that feedback from direct reports. It's also a huge burden for you guys to understand how day-to-day management goes. And then finally, we heard from Peter as the third party involved in that, that the feedback that he was receiving was not helpful. There were not clear goals, and there was not a clear consensus or report from the city council, but rather 7 individual requirements that make it very difficult to compare how his performance is working against the big 3 things that are looked at, which is sort of the strategic plan, the day-to-day operations of the city, and then the general leadership. Sorry.
I just want to bring us back to the actual topic and motion at hand. And it sounds like you may be answering my question here. Would it be, are you prepared tonight to give kind of a breakdown what the new process would look like?
That'd be great.
Perhaps costs for the
we were planning on doing that tonight.
Cool.
So.
Okay, great. It wasn't on the agenda, so like I have no idea
so
like
it was
what
planned-
actually. I want to be respectful of you and your time and what you need to have prepared in order to do this right. So okay, so if we vote yes that we want to get a breakdown of this, we would be able to do that tonight.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So where I was going to kind of walk you through. I was giving a little bit of the understanding of the why and where the feedback came from. But I also wanted to segue that into, so for the process, coming back, taking that feedback from all 3 sides, that's a pretty, there's a lot of feedback there saying that there's some pain points in how that process is working. So we put our heads together to look at what are some opportunities to try to address that. And a very common space for cities over 50,000 is many of them move into this professional neutral third-party facilitator for their city manager performance evaluations. So over the course of the last month and a half, because we had to do some due diligence ahead of that, talking to other cities, we did go through an interview process with 3 different firms to really make sure we understood what their approach was, that their approach responded to the feedback that we heard from those 3 different parties involved in the process. And then ultimately, Raftellus had the best showing in that interview based both on experience and the process. So to bring you to the process piece of it, what we are looking at this year is rather than having Holly as our HR director be the primary facilitator for this, the facilitator would move to a third-party facilitator through Raftellus, so you have that neutral third party there. In regards to the specific feedback mechanisms, another area that I apologize I forgot to mention was a pain point in the process is that there has been a lot of difficulty in staff getting responses not only from other staff, but also from members of council. And so rather than going through the paper process, Raftellis's approach is to do an in-person interview, or excuse me, a virtual interview with each of the council members. And why that is helpful is because they are able to go through the questions with you. They are also able to provide education on what an evaluation looks like, what are some of the things that you are typically looking for, because for many, this may be their first time ever doing a city manager evaluation, or they may have very little, you do it once a year, but this is essentially a major corporation operation, right? We're running all of these different entities. So they will go through that as part of that process. They'll send the questions ahead of time so that you are able to see them, prepare for them. They will be able to ask you follow-up questions. So if something is not quite clear, they don't understand it, they can start to ask those follow-up pieces. They will take that. At the same time, they will simultaneously be running a similar process for the 360s with the executive leadership and direct reports for Peter. In order to get that feedback from both of those sides, they will take all of that, compile it into a report that will be presented to the council ahead of the evaluation, as well as Peter. Peter at the same time, there's a lot of moving pieces that all happen at the same time. Peter at the same time will be working through his self-evaluation, so working through what he heard from you as goals for this year, which is largely drawn from that strategic plan. And then he will be working through what are those accomplishments, what does he feel he has done over this past period, and that will all get rolled into that report. They will present at that July 6th council meeting, and they will actually facilitate the executive session regarding that piece in order to go through that, to facilitate council discussion, and to get to a singular report out set of goals and expectations for the council, rather than just having 7 different perspectives. They will come to a, here's what your consensus is on the overall performance of the city manager. Now, he does still receive and will hear the 7 different perspectives, but it's getting to that single cohesive space. Does that help to answer?
It does. We have an active motion on the floor though, and I feel like we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
We are.
I was mostly asking you to come up so that we could answer the feasibility question to
Okay.
get at whether we could do this tonight. So are there like, yeah, I'm gonna back to you, sir.
So, so for me, we talked about this issue, several months ago, talked about it again. And I said, is this within my purview as mayor? And she said, yes. So that's why I said, let's go ahead and do this thing.
What specifically is within your purview as mayor?
Roof tellus for his eval. So that's where I made my decision, and I sent out the email. The email could have been worded better, and I apologize for that. But what my understanding is the council could change it per the city attorney. So
Council could change the program.
yes, that's what we're proposing now, right? So
Yes, and I had one of the emails that I sent was to the city attorney asking if that authority vested within the council or the office of the mayor. And the answer that I got back was the council.
And so, yeah, and so I want to clarify, the portion that has been historically in the purview of the mayor, and this is absolutely something that was within the power of the council to change, is historically, the council has essentially turned over that staff prepares the process, the mayor approves the process. Now, if that is a process that this council wants to change, that is absolutely something that we can do. It's different than how we've done historically, but many cities do it that way. I've worked in other cities that do it that way. It's not a difficult change to make moving
It
forward.
sounds like we're doing cart before the horse. Can we just vote on this?
Yeah.
So we can actually do this.
Can I would like to request the city recorder to reread the motion on the floor, please.
So the motion that I have is from Van Dremelen with a second from Thompson. Says moves that tonight or at the next council meeting, we go over the new process, the rationale to be outlined for the council in open meeting so we can vote on the process.
So, question about the motion. Are we then to have a second vote on what we believe the process should be?
Correct.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we heard the motion. We've had some discussion. Any other discussion with Councilor Smith? George, you had your question? So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Can we roll call, please?
Councilor Smith,
Aye.
Councilor McGee,
Aye.
Councilor Newton,
Yep.
Councilor Thompson,
Yes.
Councilor Van Dremelen,
Aye.
Councilor McLeod.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So what's next?
So you guys give either this meeting or the next meeting, so I'm unclear from this motion.
That's why I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you up here before we voted on it to see like what would be, because if we could do it tonight, that would be great
And
so that we can
It's
move
also
forward.
9 p.m.
Well, and I would say we already have, because of the historical way the process has been done, we do already have, the email went out to you, it's also gone out to staff, so I kind of need some direction on if I need to halt the brakes on Raftellus because they are already doing work, so.
How much does it cost?
Yeah, so the cost for the initial first year is $20,000, but we spend more than double that in staff time actually doing it every year.
Let me know if I'm out of order. I would move to conduct the city manager evaluation under the new process as recommended by staff.
So with that,
I have a motion.
Well, there is no second, so.
I know sometimes, but I have a motion. I was waiting for a second.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So I want some clarification. So with that motion, are we then saying that, because talking about the historical nature of like how things are managed, is that like changing how things are done historically, or could this change again? Like the process, is that what we're like?
So right now, it looks like you'll be changing it, and if the next council wants to change it back, they can do that.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
So the motion on the floor, and correct me if I'm wrong about your intention, Counselor Smith, is simply to adopt the process as recommended. So like if we want to set specific expectations for city staff, which regardless of how the vote on this motion goes, I've got another motion in my pocket, don't worry. Then like we could do that. Like we need to deal with the question on the floor right now, but I think it also behooves us to set clear expectations for the city staff going forward, because it sounds like there was some ambiguity there, and different councils have different preferences. Like I will fully acknowledge that. So yeah, let's deal with the question of the Counselor Smith's motion, and then we can give direction to city staff in whatever direction we wish after we deal with that.
Can you reread, what was the motion?
So the motion was by Smith, and it was a motion to conduct a city manager evaluation under the new process as recommended by Smith, and it was seconded by McGee.
Any further discussion?
Yeah. I would vote no on this. I can't, 20,000 to do the evaluation of the city manager? I mean, come on. And I question 20,000 worth of staff time too, but we have the staff. We have the staff. Mind you, I served on the Greater Albany School Board, and I currently serve on the Educational Service District, of which I know it's not the lofty city of Albany, but evaluating the superintendents is the most important thing you do. And guess what? We get it done. The individuals, the elected individuals get it done with the help of staff. I'm gobsmacked that staff feel like they can't reply. I mean, are they not grown-ups? They can't reply. Honestly, I don't know how to deal with that, but put that aside. The idea that we cannot evaluate the city manager ourselves, the city council, no, 20,000, no. And it's in the context of anytime we ask for anything, we don't have money for it. So no.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Counselor Smith.
The thing I like about this process, from what I know about it so far, is that the interviewing of the individual counselors. I don't believe that counselors could or should approach an interview like that and take the fifth, as they have done on the written evaluations that I can think of going back many years. I've been part of the staff evaluation process in the past, seeing the final product. And I guess I wasn't involved in the evaluation, but I saw the final product as a member of the executive team. And now, having done 5 of these, there are always counselors who just don't respond. They either don't turn in their materials till the very last minute, or that when they do, they've checked a box and not made any comments whatsoever. So you don't know what their checks mean. And eliciting personal responses in real time, responses to questions from a stranger, I think is a valuable exercise. We need to know how our council members feel about the chief executive that we employ without waiting until an executive session to spring things on him. This will take a little bit of that away and make us a little more civilized.
And I believe it's more fair to staff. Giving information to a person you work with on a daily basis, and in talking about your boss, you don't know what relationship they have with their boss. You don't know if they're having a hard time themselves articulating their concerns about their boss. And so I think having a neutral party come in and provide that access to them so they can be honest and open and provide real-time feedback about their boss without not having to fear anonymity, not having to worry about being exposed, I think it's a much better process. I think it's fair, and I can see where it costs $20,000 to do a comprehensive eval of our top chief executive. And so it doesn't surprise me that it costs $20,000. I thought it was actually higher than that. I've done this for 8 years, and I think this is a great process, and it takes the pressure off us because everybody can be honest with anonymity. I have to get the counselor. You're next. So for me, it makes sense, and that's why I went forward with it. And I apologize for the process being broken. Now that it's fixed, then I'll go ahead and defer to Councilor Van Dremelen. No, I thought your hand was up. It wasn't.
Just a comment. If I don't know, maybe I just think highly of you, Peter, but I feel like if someone said, "Oh, I'm so bugged about my boss," you're not going to take it personally. You're not going to like retaliate. So I just feel like I don't know. I don't think that employees should ever fear retaliation from you as their leader. And so I'm not seeing the justification in that regard. So I just wanted to say, like, I don't think that Mr. Troutson over here is going to be like, you were on my list if something got back to him. And like, so I don't know. I think more highly of you. And I agree with Councilor Thompson. We have people on staff. They feel like, isn't this baked into folks' schedules to handle this? So.
Councilor McLeod?
I think that this is a standard HR issue. There are laws against retaliation. There are laws against being upset with a whistleblower. I think that these are standard HR things. These are standard things, and we don't need to do anything excessive that's going to cost the city a consultant fee. So I'll be voting no.
Councilor Van Dremelen?
Where I'm assuming that the 20,000 comes out of an existing budget line item. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can
Yes,
you
we have
elaborate?
savings on other projects in consulting fees for some other areas that we were able to pull.
Okay.
Let's
So,
put 20 grand into some road maintenance.
It's the wrong fund, but
Let's move it around.
Okay, so now,
But I
we
do
have a-
also want to
I'm not-
clarify, I do want to clarify the comments back from staff were not in relation to retaliation from Peter. I want to be very clear about it. That concern was in regards to their anonymity being maintained throughout the organization. So I just want to be very clear on that.
Yeah. And
I have a question.
Councilor McGee?
I'm sorry, Councilor Van Dremelen can finish his thought, then I do
Yeah.
have a question.
all right. So the only other thing that I was going to say once I had an answer to the question about where the money was coming from was that while yes, there are protections for or rather against retaliation, not protections for retaliation. There are protections for whistleblowers against retaliation, things like that. Again, the concerns were not over that. There are also best practices in human resources and evaluation and things like that. And I think that there is value in protecting the anonymity of folks who are giving a 360 evaluation, particularly for the chief executive of the city. And again, my concern is not primarily over the process that was proposed. It was over how we got here. And I actually don't have a problem with what's proposed. I'm literally, my only challenge was we should have had this discussion before those emails went out and decided on it as a council. So I'm actually leaning towards voting yes on this.
So we have a motion and a second before us.
Dr. McGee had something to say.
I'm sorry, Dr. McGee. The
Thank you. I just, I know people keep hearing the 20,000 figure, so I was just wondering, just very quickly, because it is after 9, was that like the running price for a sort of a consultant firm to come in and do this? Was that like the cheapest or the best? Have we used these folks before? That's kind of what I wanted to know.
Yeah, so that's the standard price. So when we talked to other communities as well as reviewed the other firms, the price points were coming between 15 and 30,000. So 20,000 is firmly within there.
And then I apologize, the last second half of your question just left my brain as I was answering. Could you repeat the last part of that?
The last part was, is that I guess, running price, or was that or have we used these folks before? That's what it
Yes.
was.
So not for this specific, not for specific review of city manager performance, obviously, but we have used Raftellus. We actually used them most recently for the very successful recruitment of our new public works director. And we
That's what I
had
thought.
very
That's
excellent
what I wanted
service
to
from
hear, that
them,
we had-
wonderful experience,
Right.
and they were on top of everything.
That's what I wanted to know. It sounded very familiar, but I wanted to have it out in the open that we have used them before and they have been reliable and things of that nature. So thank you for that. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, let's go ahead and, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say
Aye.
no. Thank you.
No.
No.
Can we roll call, please?
Counselor Smith,
Yes?
Counselor McGee,
Yes.
Counselor Newton,
No.
Counselor Thompson,
No.
Counselor Van Dremelen,
Aye.
Counselor McLeod.
No.
We have a tie.
Yes. Next, are you already done with the business from the council?
No, not quite. Like I mentioned, I have one more motion in my pocket then. So I move that any substantive changes to the future evaluation process be brought before the council in an open meeting. And even if there are not substantive changes, that city staff do a briefing on the city manager evaluation process. I think that's good practice anyway, because we'll have new members of the council in the future, that kind of thing, prior to the process being published and pushed out to council and staff each year.
I will second that.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and excuse me, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Thank you. You got that?
Yeah, I believe that was unanimous.
Yeah, okay, good.
And that concludes my business for the
Okay,
council.
Next, Councilor McLeod.
Thank you. Gosh, how do I follow that? Wow. Okay. So I have, sorry, I have a few things here. Mostly events, upcoming events. I wanted to let our community know about. The Fire Department Fill the Boot is this Saturday, 9 to 4, near Fred Meyer. Benefits the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Get out there, fill the boot. APL Craft Supply Swap. I'm sorry, the Albany Public Library Craft Supply Swap is June 5th and 6th. Also, Wednesday, May 20th at 5 p.m. is the community conversation around the use of automated license plate reader cameras in Albany. That's at the Riverfront Community Center. I'd love to see everyone at that event. Some past events that I attended. Yesterday, I was at the 18th Annual Peace Awards celebration for GAPS high school students and teachers. The celebration put on by the Albany Peacemakers celebrated their passion for peace, justice, and inclusion, and I'm so proud of all of the students that received awards that night. On May 7th, I attended the Albany Partnership for Housing and Community Development open house at Periwinkle Place, where I toured the first built on-site fully ADA accessible unit. The nonprofit's committed to keeping these homes truly affordable for our residents, and I am proud to see this kind of steady, practical investment in Albany families. Accessible and affordable housing is foundational, and this project is a strong example of doing it right. Also on May 7th, I spoke at the Albany Civic Academy about why I became a city councilor. It was great talking with community members interested in how our government works. May 9th was the Cumberland Community Center bell ringing. That was really cool. Got to hear that bell for the first time. Also on May 9th was the YMCA Carnival and Platypus Drop. I had a great time with my daughter there. The organizers of the Albany Mushroom Festival were there helping kids create DIY blue oyster mushroom growing kits. And we loved making those. It was a great tactile learning experience. My daughter Ellie is looking forward to harvesting her own mushroom crop from that. I also attended the North Albany Middle School production recently of the musical Annie. I was blown away by the quality of this musical theater production. It was much better than anything I did in high school. So thank you, and kudos to the cast and crew of that production. Question about the flashing light installation in North Albany. It was great to see this addition with the flashing lights. I do have a question for staff about the flashing light signs. When will the sign be updated that says school starts on 9/2? Do we have any information about that sign? It's really outdated at this point. Peter?
I don't have that answer for you right off. I know there's some changes happening this coming Monday, but I can check into that and get an email to all of you about when that verbiage is changed.
Yeah, there's the sign that says school starts September 2nd is probably a little outdated by now. Also, I wanted to let people know, this is my last thing, I promise. I wanted to let people know that Jackson Street is the Oregon statewide partner for a pilot program providing one-time cash payments to youth age 18 to 23 with a history or current enrollment in the foster care system. The Lane County pilot program last year averaged $3,700 per youth. Interested youth should reach out to their case manager or service provider to receive those funds. And that is all I have.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but we have a requirement as we're past 9 o'clock. We need a council motion that we can continue.
This is true.
I was just going to do that. I will move that we continue past 9 o'clock as needed.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. We're not that far away. Counselor Thompson, you're next up.
No, in interest of time, I'll skip for tonight.
Counselor Newton.
Okay, I will be really quick because actually I have two questions I'd like answered. Got an email earlier this week from a constituent about pedestrian safety over on Spring Hill Quarry, Nevergall Loop.
Oh, no, it's that.
That intersection up in North Albany for families, cyclists, people crossing the road. It's 40-mile-per-hour speed limit up there. Is that a Benton County road or is that an us? Because I know we have some funky things up in North Albany, and I would really appreciate if staff could one clarify jurisdiction for me, please, and maintenance responsibility for that stretch of road. And then number two, would love if it is our football, to have staff review the safety conditions in that area and explore maybe whether we could add a crosswalk or flashing lights or ideally a crosswalk, basic things. And then I also, earlier, I think everyone got this email, but Peggy Burris, the Albany Public Schools Foundation Director, reached out about the continuation of the GAPS Water Awareness Program. My daughter, who's going to be a fifth grader somehow in the fall, participated in 3 years of this program. She's really confident in the water. I'm genuinely sad to hear that other kids are not going to have the same opportunity moving forward. I know that this initiative happened because of a child drowning, and we're surrounded by rivers and waterways, and this feels like a really important safety issue, especially for families that may not have access to swim lessons, especially since I'm sure the other parents here on the dais know that they go quick, especially the ones that are after working hours. So I would really appreciate if staff could look into sharing whether, I know that Director Ledane is looking into some stuff, but if there are any potential partnerships or funding opportunities or other solutions that the city or Parks and Recreation could help explore to preserve or rebuild access to youth water safety. I do know that what Executive Director Burris stated was that they have access for Albany Public School Foundation for a dedicated amount of money specifically for water safety lessons, like a amount. I can't remember what it was. It was a large amount from the Scharf Family Foundation. Yeah. And it's specifically designated for this. And I would really, I would just be so heartbroken if another child that didn't have access to this ended up getting hurt. And yeah, so come
Please.
on down.
All right. Can you hear me?
So yes, we have been having those conversations. When GAPS first approached us, they let us know that it was going to be cut for a variety of reasons. And we were pretty heartbroken and said, give us a little bit of time. We're going to come back and we're going to shoot our shot. And so looking through changes that would potentially help liability, that would provide additional time for, time in class to practice reading, all that kind of good stuff. That's why they decided to go on the land-based and cut it back. So we all know that that program reaches our most vulnerable families that won't necessarily have family members or support that are able to get them to a swim class, swim lesson, even if it's free. Access, all that kind of things are problematic. So we are in the process of looking, you're correct, the Scharf Foundation has an endowment with us. This past year, we were able to pull $50,000. So funding isn't the issue. That money remains. Sorry, as I'm chatting directly to you. So that funding remains. So we have to work through the foundation, the endowment, which is administered through the school foundation, to propose any additional projects. So we're not going to be able to get, our 1,400 kids that same access, no matter what we do, in all honesty. So we're trying to figure out if that looks like a voucher program. Is it free swim lessons? Is it providing free passes? Once again, knowing that we're going to run into the same limitations that without a bus coming from a school, we're not going to get all the kids. So, and in all honesty, working within our parameters of an aquatic facility that has to generate some revenue and serve other patrons, we only have so much time that is available after school, after hours. So we're doing everything that we can to save as much as we can of the program because we believe strongly in it. It's, almost 50 years old. And we're thankful that the school district allowed an in-based, land-based program to continue in the future. But yeah, we agree. Water safety is a critical for our community and trying to figure out how we can be a part of that.
I don't want to take up too much time, but a land-based system, like how effective is that? Like I cannot even imagine like learning to swim like on land. Like how is that?
Sure.
Is there science that shows
Sure.
that that's actually effective?
And I would, our water safety awareness class is not actual swim lessons. So we want to make sure that if kiddos are by a lake, by the river, at a pool, that they know how to properly use and the importance of a life jacket, that they understand if they fall in, what are ways to take care of themselves and get to safety if they see somebody else go in. So it's not going to be the same. It's not, but we'll be able to work through education, and we're trying to get creative into finding ways to make that a fraction of how exciting it is to be in an actual water environment and a kayak that's being tipped over and all that kind of good stuff. So we're working on it.
Thank you.
It used to be in second grade, they had a land-based program. So that happened way back in the day. So there is some curriculum that already exists. It's just a matter of figuring out how to adapt it. Sorry.
Okay.
but
No, thank
Well,
you.
thanks
I
for
appreciate it.
that.
This
Yeah.
has been like,
It's a lot.
it's so much. It's the safety of our littlest and most vulnerable residents.
When I joined the Navy at boot camp, there was like 40 people that could not swim. And we had to simulate going into the water, and they had to come in and get them. And I was lucky enough to take lessons.
Yeah.
Because California had canals, so we always had safety lessons on that. Yeah, it's important.
And that's all she
it.
wrote.
Okay, Counselor McGee,
No business tonight, thank you.
Counselor Smith.
I will pass along two things. One is a request from a constituent for the council to consider asking Republic Services to, if they have a program or could make available a program for picking up sharps containers at curbside. I spoke to Sarah Steen with Republic Services, and she said that she is not aware of any program like that in their service area other than in Woodburn. And the cost spread across the service area was $19.80 a month per customer. The people who sent me this request have signed up. They're both insulin-dependent diabetics, and they generate a fair number of sharps, and they have signed up with a mail service that Republic offers as well. So they just drop their box in the mail. It's expensive. It's in the like 50-something range a month, but it is just for that customer. It's not for the full base. And so if the council wants to consider adding that, I've spoken to the folks at Republic and they're prepared to address that if you're interested. The other thing was that I've been in correspondence with a neighbor of the Bottle Drop location at Columbus and Santiam.
Business owner?
No, it's a resident who lives on the corner. Problems with a recurring camp, a homeless camp that keeps popping up overnight on the sidewalks around the Bottle Drop property. And it was cleaned out this week for the second or third time. And he's documenting it with videos and photos and times and descriptions. And so working closely with APD, and APD is working with the Community Outreach Assistance Team and Chance. So that's, anyway, that's something that I've been corresponding about.
That's it? So for me, I've said a couple things. The Bottle Drop person, the business owner of the businesses in that mall right next to it, they have reached out to me as well. So thank you for engaging that. And I went by today and it was cleaned out. Something happened in our community that we lost a wonderful human being last week, Ray Hiltz. He's been before us hundreds of times. He passed away, and the loveliest man you'll ever meet, philanthropist, volunteer, Lions, optimist, carousel. And over the last 8 years, he's been a thorn in my side. He's also been a good friend. So I'll miss him, and I feel for his wife and his friends. But Ray was a great man, and he's funny, and he would just drop by and say, "How you doing?" He'd sit down. Okay, I'm good. He'd walk out my office. So he just had that sense of humor that was very endearing to me.
Ray was a friend of mine as well. Do you know when his service is?
I have not heard yet. I've been waiting for that information.
Okay, thank you.
And also, the NAACP is sponsoring a Teen Adult Idol program at LBCC on Friday nights at 6:30. We had initially 16 people. Now we're down to 12 or 10. These young people and adults in our community can sing. Holy cow. And the performances last week were amazing. So we're coming down to the finale is on the 22nd. And you got to come to LBCC on Friday night at 6:30 because these young people and older folks put their heart out there, and they perform, they sing great, and they're just a lot of fun to be around. And then last one I have is the Y-Vets housing, the vertical steel is going up. So if you drive on Price Road, you see the steel going up. So they're starting to build the first floor. And it's a really big deal for our veteran community and our homeless and low-income veteran community. I'm excited about it. And I hope everyone gets a chance to take a look at that. And that, I will turn it over to the city manager, his report.
Thank you, Mayor. Early in my career as a Coast Guard helicopter pilot, I had to pull the lifeless body of a 7-year-old boy out of the surf. And unfortunately, that wasn't the first and only time. So we take it very seriously, and we are looking very hard to try to find alternate sources of funding. I wanted to point out that Municipal Clerks Week was last week, and we have a pair of wonderful clerks in Eric and McKenna. So I congratulate them, and I would offer, if you get a chance to thank them for their service, that would be great. Public Works Week is next week, May 17th through 23rd. And similarly, there was talk tonight about not wanting to worry about what happens when you flush the toilet or turn the shower on. That's all thanks to our Public Works staff. And then this Friday is Peace Officers Memorial Day, May 15th. The flags will be at half-mast around the city and really around the state. There was question about how that happens, so I wanted to provide some illumination of that. The display of flags is at city-owned buildings is done in accordance with federal and state laws. The U.S. flag is lowered to half-staff by order of the president or the state governor. It's specifically or customarily flown at half-staff on specific national observances, and those include Peace Officers Memorial Day this Friday, May 15th, the last Monday in May, which, as you know, is Memorial Day, September 11th, and then December 7th, which is National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. In Oregon, the governor frequently issues additional half-staff orders for fallen law enforcement officers, firefighters, and EMS personnel, members of the armed forces in Oregon, or victims of major tragedies. And for Oregon cities, the governor's office will issue an order that's distributed by email to points of contact in cities and counties statewide. If you should ever have any questions about how that's done, please let me know. I think Councilor McLeod mentioned our engagement opportunities for automated license plate readers. There's one with the Public Safety Commission meeting on Monday night, and then another one at the Riverfront Community Center on Wednesday night. And the last thing I have is just to answer the question about Nevergall Loop, that is Benton County Road.
That stuff is so funky up there, all those.
Oh, and yes, yes, the mayor's holding up a framed certificate. And let me explain what this is. It's as part of the celebrations for the League of Oregon Cities 100th year last year, and at the suggestion of their Centennial Celebration Committee, the League of Oregon Cities Board adopted resolutions which recognized the founding members of the League. There were 25 cities which created the League. I won't read them off to you, but at the top of the list is Albany. And now it's 101 years ago. And the resolution recognizing Albany among the founding cities has been framed and given to the city. I won't read the whole resolution, but I'll just read a couple of points. A resolution of the League of Oregon Cities recognizing and commemorating the partnership between the City of Albany and the League of Oregon Cities. Whereas the League of Oregon Cities was founded in 1925 by agreement of Albany, and the list of cities goes all the way through Warrenton and Yamhill. And whereas the Oregon Constitution creates the right for cities to self-regulate, and whereas the League of Oregon Cities is celebrating its centennial anniversary, and whereas the City of Albany is a strong partner of the LOC, an exemplary city within the state of Oregon, now therefore the Board of Directors of the League resolves as follows: recognizes the City of Albany as an extraordinary city within the state, and recognizes the City of Albany as an exemplary partner and supporter of the League of Oregon Cities. Enacted December 12th of last year. Jessica Engelke, President. And that is all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And you can look at the plaque of the citation right there. Next meeting is.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to say real quick something, because I had talked to one of the counselors earlier and said I would be prepared to give an update on Simpson Park when the council would like to hear it. I can do a short one now,
Go
or we
ahead,
can
please.
do it later on, but we had some citizens here tonight speaking on that topic
Okay.
about their property being red tagged and whatnot. So if it's, and I understand it's late, so I can hold this till the 27th, or we
still
can
here?
do two.
They left. Council, if you want to hear it tonight, it's up to you.
And we're also compiling that information, and I can distribute it by email tomorrow morning as well.
You just, yeah, you might, some of the counselors might get some emails in the next, between now and the 27th, so.
I've gotten some already.
Yeah, okay. I mean, in a nutshell, I'll just say this: the property in Simpson Park is in Millersburg. It's not in the city limits. Almost all of it is in the city of Millersburg. We've been in contact with Lynn County Sheriff's Office, with APD, trying to ascertain moving forward who is going to be patrolling that area. It's going to be Lynn County Sheriff. They went out there yesterday, made contact with 36 camps. I think they made 7 arrests on outstanding warrants while they were out there. But the city is going to be sending resources out there to talk to people about potential resources that are available to them. I know that one of the CSOs and I think our park ranger went out with the Lynn County Sheriff's Office today to do some of that. And I believe APD is going to be sending some people out as well. But the way that property is situated in the city of Millersburg, how Albany is involved in it is that we have a conservation easement from Simpson Timber in favor as the grantee of the conservation easement. The problem is as part of the requirements of that conservation easement, we have to keep that property in a certain condition, and Simpson Timber has made it clear that that camping on that property is not permitted. So we are not allowed to continue to that out there. But and again, it's not in the city limits, so our Albany Police Department won't be patrolling it. It'll be the sheriff's department that'll be out there that'll do the patrols on that. So you'll probably hear that Albany is doing, is taking the property away and stuff. It's not ours. And the city of Millersburg is actually, their council is getting ready to make an issue about it too, that people are camping on it, because I think there's been some issues with some of their local businesses that abut those camps.
Okay.
But in any event, that's where we're at right now. But we can discuss it in detail at another meeting if y'all would like. So
Thank you.
Mayor, I have one thing to add to that. Staff from Chance and
Yes.
Second Chance Shelter were on scene
Yep.
with them
Emma
as
Dean was
well.
out there, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And the folks from the Community Outreach Assistance Team are very familiar with the people who live at the
Out there.
camp. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so next meeting dates, ARA, Albany Revitalization Agency meeting, May 27th at 4 o'clock in Chambers. So Commissioner, Chair Newton will be heading that meeting. Next city council meeting is May 27th at 6 PM here in the Chambers. And then Monday, June 8th, 2022 for a work session at 4 PM. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Have a good evening, y'all.